Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk the Walk here on Boss Rush Games, part of the Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network. I am your Southern Belle, Eddie V. Joining me is the one, the only, the spicy Cajun girl herself, Miss Celeste Roberts.
Ed, you sent me with the Southern Belle. Oh my god, I was not expecting that, and if you're not watching the video footage, I almost fell out of my office chair.
And also, we have a very special guest. He is never late to gaming. Please welcome Late from LateToGaming. Hello, Late.
Hey, Ed. Hey, guys. I'm so excited to be on today and really looking forward to talking about this game. Celeste kind of turned me on to it, I think, before it was even released, and I've been looking forward to it ever since then. So this is very exciting for me. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. So at this time, everybody, we are talking about the game NORCO, and I'm going to turn it over to Celeste because she's going to be hosting this episode because I have some things to say and I have feelings, and I cannot wait to get into this discussion. So Celeste, take it away.
Well, so a little behind the curtain, because if people have been listening, I'm sure they were thinking, well, where's Detroit Become Human? Because Eddie had alluded to that being the next game after the Life is Strange series. But life's been very chaotic, and that game is a little bit longer than I have time to dedicate gaming to. So Norco is about 5 to 6 hours long. So that was much more manageable. So Ed graciously said, yes, we can do that one in December. And I think he is kind of happy we're doing it too, just with life, the holidays, schedules. But LateToGaming here, who also goes by Henry, Henry of Two Forks, if you have played Firewatch, you will get that reference. We've been friends on Twitter for a while, and we're also big fans of the Retrovaniacs podcast. We interact on their Discord server a lot. He is also part of the Boss Rush Discord server. So LateToGaming, you don't have a podcast, but you do a lot of other types of media related to video games. Would you like to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I started, 5 or 6 years ago with a blog, which I kind of keep up to date sometimes. I've done some streaming on Twitch a little, not as often as I would like to, but occasionally I pop on there. And I do a little bit on YouTube as well. And all of those are LateToGaming, of course, if anyone is interested in checking them out. But yeah, I'm kind of a new gamer as far as modern gaming goes. I was gaming as a kid and then took many years away. Picked back up with Xbox One, and I've just gotten into it just head first. I'm kind of, that's my main hobby at this point. And games like Norco that's probably my favorite type of game to play. So was very excited when this opportunity came up to talk about it. And I'm really interested in seeing where this conversation goes.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, because you are very thoughtful and we have good discussions, just written out discussions. So this is a treat for me, and I'm sure it's a treat for Ed as well.
Yes.
So very excited. So if you're new here, we are a walking simulator and sometimes a cozy game podcast, book club like podcast, but not all the games are very cozy. Some of them can involve some very serious topics. So we have started releasing some trigger warnings at the top of the episode. So if any of these you're maybe a little sensitive to, maybe skip this episode or come back to it when you're feeling a little bit more comfortable to hear some of the discussions. So some trigger warnings include death, drugs, drinking, cultism, depression, gun violence, natural disaster trauma, poverty, strained family dynamics, and fence line communities. So I had never heard the term fence line communities until I played this game. And it's basically a racial disparity whenever a large corporation tries to buy out locals. So that's a hot topic. I was reading on some different examples of this outside of the game. So if you've been affected by this, and hey, I'd love to hear from you, first of all, but just wanted to be sensitive to people's potential triggers. So we like to start these with an opening question related to the game. So as you were playing Norco late in Ed, did it remind you of any cities in your area, wherever you live, or anything at all that you've been to, even if you don't live there, or something you've passed through?
So, we actually, the city of Waukegan, Illinois, actually had something. It was called AB Specialty Silicones, and it blew up 3 years ago. Um,
Literally?
yeah, it was a manufacturing plant that made silicone, and like at 9:30 p.m. there was a big explosion, and the building blew up. You actually go to YouTube, everybody, and look at some of the reports. But it's only 15 minutes from my house, and I was at work that day when it was when the explosion went off, and I could hear it from from where where I work at to where the explosion was. It's about 35 minutes away from each other, and I was able to hear it. And people were just like, "What the world happened?" And it showed like I think 9 to 12 people were injured. Some people died in it, but it was a real big explosion and everything. The other kind of like factory that is in my area, literally about like 10 minutes from me, is Abbott. So anyone who has been doing the COVID test and everything, in the blue box, you will see Abbott's name on it. My mom used to work there. So it's a
Oh,
pharmaceutical place. Some people, some I think some of it name it AbbVie, ABBVIE, but yeah, those are kind of like the like for like a big company, Abbott is there, and then it's P&G, which does Gillette, Tide, and things like that. My brother, I think he still works for them. He's been working for them since he got out of college, and so that's a kind of another big factory and everything. So those are kind of like the big ones in my area in Illinois.
what about you, Late?
So, I'm originally from the eastern part of Kentucky, which is heavy coal mining area. And when I started playing this, I didn't expect to find very many similarities, between Kentucky and Louisiana, and between the coal industry and the refining industry. But I was amazed how familiar all of this felt to me. The idea of the company town that kind of runs everything in an area, and then the impacts on the environment and the impacts on really the economy and poverty of the people in the area is it could have been describing the area that I grew up. And then the explosions and that sort of thing. I was thinking, I don't know if there's anyone who grew up in that area who doesn't know someone who was injured in some way in coal mines, and probably is no more than one step removed from knowing someone who died in an explosion or cave in. So it's very very familiar to me, and I really playing through it. I felt like I was, even though it was set in a different area, I felt like I was playing through kind of my childhood and my the area that I call home.
That's incredible.
Which
So for
which connects to Life is Strange 3, True Colors. When you said the coal mine thing and that
Mhm.
ending, and I was just like, oh my goodness, the connection from that game to this game.
Yeah, very
Mhm.
much.
That's a great comparison, Ed. So, for listeners who, if this is the first time you've listened and you don't know much about me, my name is Celeste and I live in Louisiana. I actually live about 45 minutes away from Norco, which is a real city right outside of New Orleans, or should I say, a census designated area. So Norco actually stands for New Orleans Refining Company. It is part of St. Charles Parish, Louisiana, which, just in case you weren't aware, Louisiana does not call counties counties. We call them parishes. And in case you were wondering why, Louisiana was officially Roman Catholic under both France and Spain's rule. We've been owned by a few different people. The boundaries dividing the territories generally coincided with church parishes, and in 1807, the territorial legislature officially adopted the ecclesiastical term. So, whenever I'm talking to people out of state, sometimes I'll switch it to county, so they know what I'm talking about. But so this game was created or developed by Geography of Robots, and let me see. According to Geography of Robots Twitter, Norco takes place in an alternative winter of 2017/2018. So it's near past rather than near future, which kind of surprised me. I thought this was way in the future. What did y'all think?
That's what I did too. Um, and this is the reason why I thought it was way in the future. There is a game called Snatcher. And Hideo Kojima made this game kind of back in the 80s, the 90s. And when it originally came out, it was only 2 acts until the Sega CD version came out. And it kind of, the way that this game feels and looks, because it looks like it's kind of like in the future, like it's like very
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi and everything. And Snatcher is like it anyone who has seen Blade Runner, um that influenced Snatcher and everything. So when you're playing Norco, you're watching it and you're hearing this music, it has this sci-fi futuristic kind of feel to it. It definitely in this gameplay also. So when I'm looking at it and hearing it, I'm just like, this gotta be like in like way in the future. Then when just hearing it, I'm just like, wait a minute. It's only in that year. I'm like, what? It feels like it feels like that time frame and what is in the game does not connect at all.
Because at the time of this recording, it is 2022. It is December 19th, 2022.
Yes.
So, what about you, Late? Were you surprised to hear that, what I just read?
Yeah, I was surprised. I didn't necessarily feel like it was far into the future, but I definitely felt like it was at least somewhat futuristic. At least a decade or something into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I agree with Ed. It has that feel of some of those typical um, futuristic sci-fi movies that we're probably all used to. And then some of the technology obviously doesn't exist today. So I was very surprised to learn that it was set when it is. I assume, is that time frame when the game was first started? Is that the reason?
I believe they've been working on it for several years, at least 5 years. They've
Okay,
been working on this game.
so that may have been the present setting when the game started.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And I apologize, Yutz or Utes. I'm not sure how you pronounce your name. He is the mastermind behind a lot of the writing and the stories. He actually is from Norco, might even still live there. I'm not sure, but he developed the game, and he actually runs the Geography of Robots Twitter. So, Geography of Robots developed this game, and it was published by Raw Fury. It actually came out just earlier this year, and we like to put what systems games are available on, and I forgot to do that.
Uh, well, I got you, Celeste. So,
Thank you, Ed.
the platforms is on Mac OS, Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. The Microsoft and Mac OS Windows version came out March 24th, 2022, and the console versions came out November 17th, 2022. And as
Mhm.
everybody can see, this is a adventure game, like point and click, and it is single player. It's a possibility that we may see this game on Nintendo Switch next year, but it is not guaranteed yet. Mostly some of these games that come out on the other platforms will later come out on Switch. If you have not played this game, and you're waiting for the Switch version, it's a possibility it may come out because Raw Fury does make games for Nintendo Switch. So we may literally see it on that console next year.
Thank you, Ed. You came in clutch. I appreciate that. So I played this on Xbox Game Pass. What did y'all play it on?
I bought the game on Series X.
Okay,
I played it on PC via Game Pass.
great. I thought it ran very smoothly. I was very pleased with my Game Pass experience. Did y'all have any issues? Because I know the Geography of Robots Twitter, they are actually sharing updates on patches that they are making, especially I think for the PS4, PS5 version.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have any issues, but because you're using the cursor with your controller, sometimes it gets in the way, and
Mm,
there's no dedicated button to keep the game, the dialogue where you could keep it going and everything. Um, Normally there is a point in the game that if you happen to have the cursor to the reading, it starts doing that recorder in your phone and everything, and you're just like, I didn't mean to
mm,
record that and
mm-hmm.
everything. So,
I did that.
yeah, and sometimes even if you're off and you're trying to hit the button, it doesn't respond. So sometimes the text doesn't go down next. But that's the only problem that I had with it. From here, there, everything else ran smoothly and stuff.
Yeah, I thought it ran very well on PC. I had a feeling it would be a better keyboard and mouse game, which was the reason I chose to play it there. Typically, I would have probably played it on Xbox as well, but I think playing it on PC I think was probably a good choice for me.
Oh, may I add, on some of
Mm-hmm.
the battle sequence, uh, there is a point where um there'd be like three dots like zooming in into the character, and it's all like uh you gotta hit it in the sequence when those dots lands and stuff, um because you gotta hit them with your cursor on the Xbox and stuff. It doesn't always respond well. So you may hit one or two and try to get to it, and then it destroy like you may fail that state and lose energy. So I think what they should have done for the console version is that I feel like they should have did button sequence. So like a X, A, Y come out, and you just hit those three buttons, and if you can hit them in the right timing and everything, you affect the enemy in that. They should have did that, but they made it still because it's point and click. They didn't put that into the game, so that becomes a big problem at times.
Yeah, like I was moving my little joystick on the Xbox controller to, like it's a point and click game. You're moving the
Hmm.
little cursor, the little pointer, and then clicking and stuff. So this is a very text heavy game. There is a little bit of action, so to speak, but I believe that you can actually put the action in the battle sequences on autopilot. I was reading. I didn't do that. Like I actually engaged, but we'll we'll get to that in a little bit. Unless you have something very pressing to say, Ed, about that.
No, I didn't. I literally did not know that. And
I
what
didn't
that
either.
and because of the battle part, and yeah, we're gonna say that's later. That's why that idea of Snatcher came, because Snatcher has some battle sequence in the game too.
And this game was influenced by Snatcher, actually. So, to help us
Mhm.
prepare, we did, look up the Norco official website. We looked up TV tropes. We looked up the Wikipedia. There is a wealth of resources, especially if you go to Norco's official site. If there's anything you want to know about this game, any like the bibliography, even, absolutely check out their website. It is a treasure trove of information about this game. So, the synopsis directly from the website: Norco is a Southern Gothic point and click narrative adventure that immerses the player in the sinking suburbs and verdant industrial swamps of a distorted South Louisiana. Your brother Blake has gone missing in the aftermath of your mother's death. In hopes of finding him, you must follow a fugitive security cyborg through the refineries, strip malls, and drainage ditches of suburban New Orleans. So I thought it might be helpful to define what Southern Gothic is, because I was an English major, so we studied some different literature, and a lot of people listening and late and Ed, you probably read some of the literature in school at some point. Um, Southern Gothic is an artistic subgenre of fiction, country music, film, and television, and they're all heavily influenced by Gothic elements and the American South. Common themes include storytelling of deeply flawed, disturbing, or eccentric characters who may be involved in hoodoo, decayed or derelict settings, grotesque situations, and other sinister events relating to or stemming from poverty, alienation, crime, or violence. I think all of those things are in this game.
Oh yeah, definitely
that
it is.
I find
Yeah.
that description perfect for Norco. And oh, this stuck out to me because I was looking for examples of Gothic literature, and the short story "A Rose for Emily" by William Faulkner. Have y'all ever read that?
I heard of it, I have not read it yet.
No, I haven't read it.
I highly recommend. It's very short. It's a little disturbing, but there are some disturbing things in this game that reminded me of "A Rose for Emily," and I would love to know your opinion after you read that. So I don't know if you were aware of this, but Norco in Louisiana is also referred to as Cancer Alley. So, because Norco is a refinery town and there are a lot of residents who live right there, a lot of people have become sick due to the pollution and the environmental damage. And it's part of a strip in Louisiana known as Cancer Alley. And there are people, activists, fighting for recognition and for some retribution because they're sick, they're dying, they're hurt. And oh my goodness, this as I was playing this game, I could feel the disparity and the weariness of the people because even though I live about 45 minutes away, I passed through Norco my entire life on my way to New
Hmm.
Orleans. And Louisiana is very heavy in the oil and gas industry. My dad used to work on a production platform in the Gulf of Mexico. He would drive to Venice, Louisiana, and he'd get on a helicopter. He'd go to a platform there for 2 weeks, come back home for 2 weeks, and so on until he retired last year. And I remember he told me, yeah, I'm basically on a bomb, is what he described it as. Like, this thing could blow up. And that was very sobering. So, as you were describing the coal mine industry late, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and I think your use of the term weariness is really really good to describe the situation because I was thinking after playing this, it's easy to see the situation that the the poor people in the area are in, but what I think is often overlooked is the impact that living in an area like that has on people who may even be a little better off financially. But when you're surrounded by basically a sense of despair in a lot of ways, it kind of eats at you, and it has a real impact on you. I think just psychologically, and so I think even people who are fortunate enough to not be living in poverty in those areas are still very much affected by the despair and the weariness that you mentioned. And I think there are a few people that live in areas like that who really find a way to escape it without being affected in some way.
Hmm.
That's beautifully stated. And that's a really good segue to the start of the game. So, when you pull up the game, it's text heavy again, and you do see some animations, and it's kind of like a pixelated art style. It's very beautiful. The part that sticks out to me from the beginning the most is you see this refinery in Louisiana and this train passing, and there are these eyes in the sky. And I'm assuming they are the main character, Kay's eyes. So Kay is this young woman. She is from Norco, Louisiana originally, and she left about 5 years prior to the game's current events. I guess she was just kind of like, oh, I want to leave my hometown. I want to find myself. I want to go on an adventure. So she went out west. And during this sequence, you can decide where she went. You can decide her feelings on different things. Again, she has a brother named Blake. He's about 2 years younger than she is. And I don't remember these choices being too consequential to the game. Mine, like, they don't affect the ending or endings, I should say. We'll save that for later. But her mom has been trying to get in touch with her. She learns that her mom has passed away from cancer. So she is returning back to Norco. And, actually, after this beautiful opening sequence, again, it's very text heavy, you go back to her house. And the house, it stuck out to me immediately, the Mary statue.
Yes.
in the front yard because not everybody has them, but you are more than likely, especially with older generations, going to see a Mary statue, possibly a Saint Joseph statue, a Jesus statue, an angel statue. It is a very Catholic area down here. So Leighton, Ed, tell me your reactions to just this introduction, maybe Catherine Kay's Blake's house.
So I know for me, I made the choices I was making was like I kind of felt like I disowned my mom, like, that she wasn't part of my life and everything. I kind of just like I'm only back here to, kind of bury her and, say my wishes and stuff before the story kicks in and everything. I was just like, I want to play where they don't have a good relationship or anything. That I'm kind of
Mm.
this rebel, this vagabond in a sense. And so that was some of the choices that I was making. And it was weird for a person to have cancer, how neat the house was. You go into the living room and there's laundry on the table and that's folded up. It's clean on the ground. You got the TV and everything. And then you get out. And when I clicked on the Mary thing, because you could move the cursor around and click on different stuff to move around. When I clicked on it and I was able to go in, I was just like, oh, this is going to play a part later on in the game. It's one of those um I kind of want to say like Alfred Hitchcock kind of things because I've been watching some movie reviews about his movies. There's times where they'll zoom in on a certain item that's the murder weapon or that's very important to the story and how things going to proceed. And so when I was able to zoom in into the Mary statue, I'm like, oh, this is really going to play a part, and it does, but we'll get to that later. So I that's the kind of person that I was playing, but as I played got more into the story, my choices started changing because I wanted to know more about these characters that I'm interacting and everything. So
How about you, Late?
So Ed mentioned the laundry in the living room, and that is the one thing that has stuck with me from that opening sequence more than anything. And
Really?
yeah, and I think this game does a good job of storytelling in a way that lets each person kind of find meaning in things without just spelling it out and without really just being real obvious about it.
hmm
And to me, that the laundry in the living room, there were two things. The first was it really showed me that how sudden Catherine took a turn for the worse. Because, like Ed said, the house was clean. She had clearly been just going about her daily life. Um, and then all of a sudden, things took a turn for the worse and she got put in a hospice. And then the other thing is thinking about Blake, who's been presumably living there since she went in the hospice and passed away, and now Kay being in the house, and what it must be like to walk past that every day and have that reminder, that very real reminder of the fact that she's not there and she's not going to be able to put it away herself. But at the same time, I feel like in some of those situations, you may not want to put it away yourself because that's kind of closing a chapter. And so I can see that kind of struggle that you might have over something so mundane, but it having just a really kind of heavy emotional meaning to the people who are living there and dealing with it every day.
Oh gosh, that's very heartfelt. Like it's kind of like not that Catherine was a child, but I've heard of some people after if they lose a child, some people immediately change their room to a guest room or an office or something
hmm
else. That's their coping mechanism. And other people that can't bring themselves to even go in there or they like to sit in that room as it is.
Yeah, and so often in media and fiction, we see it's things like that that tend to kind of create problems between couples or parents when different people deal with the grief differently. And
Hmm.
this is a case where if Blake wanted to leave it there, if Kay had moved in and she didn't want to see it because that was affecting her dealing with her grief, it's a minor thing that could really cause some problems between people who just have very different ways of dealing with grief. We don't know that that would be the case here, but just your mention of the children and the parents made me think about that and how common that seems to be.
Yeah, and that's a great tie-in to Kay and Blake's relationship though, because there are a lot of hints that he's kind of resentful that Kay, quote unquote, abandoned them. He There's some really kind of funny, but also kind of possibly hurtful dialogue about Kay remembers their grandmother said that boy doesn't pay attention to anything. Because they don't come out and say it, but Blake seems to have some kind of ADD or ADHD, some kind of attention deficit issues, and he doesn't even realize that the grandma was talking about him because Kay says, "Are you upset with what grandma said about you, insulting you like that?" He's like, "Oh, she was talking about me in their childhood." So, and I'm from a small town, and I've lived here my whole life, but I did live overseas in Japan. I taught English over there, and I like to travel. And there are a lot of supportive people in my area, but there are, like with any kind of small town, there are some people who see it as, oh, you think you're better than us, you're moving on, you have the means to do this. It just depends on the person.
Blake was weird though. Weird in the fact of the way that he was written and what kind of characteristic he was supposed to be. Because even if he had these problems as a young kid and whatever relationship him and Kay had, it really felt like he was into bad stuff. Like he was a drug runner, or he was on drugs, or he was a thief, or he was a criminal. The tone just really felt different from him, having these mental problems to what everybody else says about him. And it really felt like after Kay left, he got into a lot of bad stuff, which probably was dealing with gangs, dealing with drugs and stuff. And that it's kind of weird to see, like, well, if a person who is slow or have ADHD and stuff, they wouldn't necessarily get into drugs and gangs and stuff like that. That feels very separate and different. So the writing is kind of weird about that as Blake. But as the game progresses, you don't think in your mind about Blake until you really start feeling, because that when you start not seeing him throughout the game, and everybody's just like, yeah, he was here, but I don't see him or anything. I thought he fell asleep behind a tavern. No, he's never come around the tavern and stuff. You start getting really worried about Blake, to be like, where is he at, and does his location play a part in this game? Because I'm like, if Blake becomes an afterthought, my go-to solution is he's dead somewhere.
Mhm.
And so it kind of just felt weird on how he was how he was placed and described in this game.
Yeah, he kind of became an afterthought to me. I hate to say it. Just like you arrive, you're in your room, you're reading different things. You can explore Kay's room. You can even play a game with her stuffed monkey and take it with you on your travels. And Blake, well, your mom's passed away. You're trying to find Blake. He's not at the house. This was really cool. As you talk to different characters or you read different things, something called a mind map opens, and
Mm-hmm.
it's described as a database of non-playable characters or NPCs you're going to encounter throughout the game. It is beautifully portrayed. It'll say things like Catherine was dot dot dot, and as you learn things about your mom, you can go back and check the mind map, and it'll glow whenever you have new information, and you can read it as many times as you want. Catherine was doing this. Catherine was involved with this, just as an example. I love the mind map. I That is incredible.
So surprisingly, the mind map plays a big part in this game because you have to use it in order to find Duck. And I was just like, I I'm like, okay, I'm learning these characters. I've seen their connections and relationship. Oh, this is how I found Duck. And then I just started clicking on it. And I'm just like, this connection opens this connection. So it's like a game within a game for this game. in a sense. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
it's just like you read the text and get the clues, and they add it to the mini map, the mind map. You go into the mind map, find different stuff that opens up more detail about the story and locations, and then you use those clues and information to find out when you get ready to travel to the next destination. It's right there because you went into the mind map in order to find it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything to say about this, Late?
So yeah, I was just thinking a lot of games have something like that where it'll be, a glossary of terms or the characters with brief descriptions, and sometimes I don't even do a good job of reading through that stuff. But in this case, I found myself kind of almost excited every time that I would see there was something new. I wanted to go and see and read it because
Mhm.
it really is interesting and it really helps draw you into this world and these characters. And I thought that it was very well done.
It's fantastic. And
Yes.
this game, if you like to explore, well, you better like to explore if you're going to play this game, because that's how you unlock all these different mind map entries, in fact. And you can, if you're big on achievements, this game is very heavy on achievements. I did not get them all, but if you look up walkthroughs, if that's a big thing for you, you can look them up. So
Hmm.
you can explore the front yard, and there is a lot of dialogue, or I guess some writing, I should say, about how the house has flooded like 3 times due to hurricanes. I think there was also an incident where something with just simply the infrastructure, the pipes burst or something. The sewage and water board had some issues in your area. So the house is flooded like 3 times, and that broke my heart. I've never dealt with flooding from a storm or anything like that. My area, fortunately, does not flood, but certain areas in Louisiana are very prone to flooding, and they're surrounded by levees, which are meant to protect those areas. And actually, if you remember Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which affected New Orleans so much and Norco, the levees broke. And that's in New Orleans is below sea level. It's kind of like a bowl. So
Hmm.
water went into it. So hopefully the infrastructure has been improved greatly. But gosh, we could have a whole episode on the Army Corps of Engineers and their failures and all. Oh my gosh, well,
Uh, I will jump in right quick and say
yeah.
so two of those floods, if I remember correctly, were from pump failures. And one of
Mm-hmm.
them I remember her describing happening is after a heavy rain. So it didn't
Okay.
sound like there was, in that case, even a hurricane. It sounded
Okay.
like something, I won't say mundane, but a regular thing that happens, but the pump failed. And then there was another character later. I think it's optional to go to this location, but he talks about his car getting flooded from a pump failure. So it sounds like that
Yes.
is
Yes. Yes.
happening fairly often there over a span of it sounds like 10 or 15 years, and it really
Yeah.
makes me wonder. You know, are the people in the more well-off areas dealing with these pump failures and dealing with their houses being flooded with this regularity, or is this just one more of those cases where the poor are kind of stuck in these areas on the edge and they're kind of ignored and kind of you know they they're kind of second class citizens and the infrastructure that they are living with is subpar compared to what everyone else is dealing with.
Thank you so much for that, because I don't live in New Orleans, but I follow the news that's broadcast out of there, and the sewage and water board gets into a lot of trouble whenever there's a heavy rain. Even places in the French Quarter will flood just due to insufficient infrastructure. And there's actually excuse my language, there is an account on Instagram that I follow called Look at This Fucking Street, and they actually interviewed the creator of this account, and he takes pictures of potholes, and people will send him pictures of potholes and really damaged streets. And it's kind of a way to, yeah, we're going to make fun, but we're also trying to draw awareness to the powers that be, like, come take care of this. People are paying out of the ass in taxes to help support this infrastructure. So yeah, like, just I was thinking of all that kind of stuff while playing this game, which I guess in a way I think anyone, no matter where you live, you can enjoy this game, obviously, but having that, oh, I know what they're talking about. I get that little jab at that particular entity, that it enriches it a little bit more. But if you go to your backyard, we meet a character named Million. And Million or Millions? I'm trying to remember if there's an S at the end of her
A million.
name.
It's million.
Million.
Yeah.
So that's where I was like, this is when I thought it had to be set in the future. She is basically a fugitive cyborg, and the oil company or the refinery in Norco is called the Shield Company, which is a play on Shell, which is slash was in the area. So, Shell Oil, very, very well known company. And Million is basically, if you've ever watched the Brady Bunch, she kind of reminds me of the Alice
Mm-hmm.
of, of the family. She's like the maid. She helps out with chores. I think she took care of the kids growing up. And she was there to take care of Catherine as she was very sick. She's very intelligent. Her face is very unique. And if as you play the game, it kind of reminds me of this. It not only does it remind me of Constellations, but I will say if I have driven past Norco or through Norco at night, and as a child, I thought the refineries were beautiful because at night, like if you're over a bridge, if you're over the Mississippi River and you see them in the distance, they look like these beautiful lit up cities. I remember asking my parents, "Oh, what city is that? Can we go over there?" And they're like, "No, that's an oil refinery. That's not a place you want to go and just visit on
Right.
your own." But Million's face reminds me of the glow of those refineries at night a little bit. And she can actually repair your truck. You have to gather some different items to help, or sorry, their motorcycle. And she's trying to help you find Blake. And this is where you can actually start to travel around your surroundings. So the next place you can go to is called Dimes Discount, which, oh my goodness, the character you meet who used to work there, I guess I don't know if I can't remember if he was on drugs, if he was an alcoholic, but his name is Troy, and he's wearing. I'm not sure if this is the PC term, but he's wearing a wife beater, basically
Mm.
a white tank top or an undershirt. And he went to high school with Kay. He's very aggressive. You can even fight him.
I
Oh,
fought him.
yeah, yeah, I fought him too. What did you fight him late?
No, I didn't. I don't specifically remember what the choices were, but I did not fight him.
Yeah, in the fight system, it's kind of like a Simon Says, where they kind of look like little floppy disks. These little images will appear on the screen. They will shine or glimmer in a certain order, and you have to click them in that order for an action to happen. And your monkey can even fight with you. It's very fantastical.
Yeah.
I
So
really like that.
so yeah, you use the monkey in order to do part of your fighting and stuff.
Hmm.
And that's when you kind of follow a pattern of these like card things. And once you do it, um, it takes damage off. And then you can also
Hmm.
use Million, who will help you fight enemies too. Or I won't say enemies. I say opponents in this game.
Yeah. And then, so that is an achievement, by the way, late, that if you choose to fight Troy, it's called a class traitor achievement.
Yeah,
But
because you get sassy with him, and you had the choice to be like, no, I'm not gonna fight him. Or I'm gonna agree with them and let him go, or I could fight him. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna fight him.
So while we're at the Dimes discount, do you want to talk a little about the director? Because I just kind of did my best to get out of that as quickly as possible without any sort of real altercation. But it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there that I missed out on.
yeah, so right outside of Dimes Discount, which is basically a convenience store like in front of a gas station or behind a gas station, there are these people who are filming a movie. And Louisiana is a very popular destination for movies, especially, like, I guess, Civil War era movies, because we have a lot of plantations and we have sugarcane fields, and you can do a lot of storytelling here. But I the director is very antagonistic. He's like, "You're in my way. What does it look like we're doing?" But then he's like, "Wait a minute, are you from here?" And I think you can lie, but I kind of went along with it. And he's asking you, "What would you call this? And how would you say this?" So he's basically trying to see if there are any Louisiana specific phrases. But a lot of the options, just in case you're not sure, we do talk like other people in America. We use terms like asshole, and you can choose to give him the kind of like sarcastic answer of I would just say asshole, and he dismisses you, he doesn't want anything to do with you. Or I played along with him and I gave him the more highfalutin type of language just to mess with him. Like, oh, he's like, yeah, this is what a local says, and he's directing the actor to use that language. What did you guys do?
Can I tell you, I don't remember this part at all. I don't even think I encountered this.
What?
Yeah,
Oh
I
man.
think I missed this whole section. I don't remember the director or anything, because I remember after getting at going to the gas station and getting the first item that I need, I just headed back to I think I headed back to the house so I could go and start the bike ride and stuff and start traveling and everything. I miss all of that.
Oh man, you can give him some very outlandish responses, and I can't do a true Cajun accent. Like if you watched Waterboy or you remember Coach Orgeron for LSU prior to this football season, I can't do that thick accent. I have tried. In fact, my boyfriend teases me and is like, "You sound like a Yankee trying to do a Cajun accent." Whenever I try to do one, but I mean, we do because of the French influence. There, like my great grandparents grew up speaking French as their first language, but then it was actually beaten out of them in school. There was a time period where they were trying to anglicize the United States, and if you were caught speaking French, you'd get a rattle, a tap with a ruler on your hands. And so I missed out on being in a bilingual household because of that. But we do still have some phrases we use. Um, Honestly, not even every day. I mean, sometimes, like couillon is something you would say to describe a foolish person, but we don't talk like Justin Wilson. You remember him, the Cajun chef? We don't really talk like these people every single day. Like I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I messed with the director. Late, you wanted to get away from him.
Yeah, but now that you've described it, I kind of want to go back and replay it and see what some of these options are.
Hmm. Some of them I've never heard of
Oh,
ever.
really?
I was like, what is this?
I want to go back and just encounter this whole thing.
Like if you watch the Golden Girls, like some of these exaggerated Southernisms that Blanche Devereaux will say, well, I'm like, nobody talks like that. So he said something like, "Oh, I'm an alligator in heat," or I don't know, whatever the heck he said. I'm like, no, we just call that person an asshole. We don't have a special term. We're not that poetic. We're just everyday people. I do wish in this game, whenever you see something very cute, it's very common to say, "Oh, sha," which is CHER, like share, which means deer, but it's pronounced sha. So, Eddie, if you showed me a cute puppy, I would be like, "Oh, sha, that's so cute."
it
It's
has
like very dear.
it has a French accent to it. Feel to it. It does.
Yeah, it does because it's French for deer. Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So, the okay, can we talk about Dime's discount because it made me sad. It made me very sad because Troy, even though he's kind of a jerk, he has lost his job to machines. If you go to Walmart or any other store, even Target, there are a lot of self-checkout machines, which, if I have one or two items, I don't mind, but every now and then I do like to interact with a human being. So this store has no use for humans, it looks like, except to man the machines if they break. And Troy has lost his way to support himself. And you can actually interact with this machine. I think you can ask it some very hard hitting questions and it gives you a pre programmed response. But yeah, what did y'all
Now,
think?
now this is ludicrous. I'm like, you are just a complete alcoholic. You mean to tell me that you are a person who's supposed to be in retail and machines has taken your job? I mean, the machines are not stocking the stuff in the stores. So you have I'm like, it's a convenience store. It's a gas station. You just put this stuff up. The thing about this, the only machine that is in there is when you're doing the checkout. There's nothing else in there that's machine wise. And if the machine breaks and you can't check out, then someone's got to be there to fix it. So I just really I just found that so non-cynical and everything, because it's just like you're blaming something for your, I won't say incompetence, but for your lack of, you know, of trying. You know, you're blaming something that isn't anyone else's fault. You know, what probably happened is you probably became an alcoholic. You probably lost your job before they even put in the machines, because they probably offered you a different position and you still gonna get your same pay, but just a different position, and you didn't want that because it removes you from your comfortable state and everything. So I just found that like non-cynical. I'm just like, you can't blame the machine. And then when you play throughout the whole game, there isn't that many machines. There are still humans around doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's there's a part in the second act that that you would think that, okay, why are, you know, the automatic cars? Where's the flying and stuff? You know, and everything. And it just really feels weird that if he wants to blame the machines, you would think that this place would still be very technological in it. And when you realize and play throughout the game, it's not very technological in investment. You just have self
Hmm.
checkout. That's all you have.
I think it's kind of just this. I think it's showing the gradual takeover of the machines a little bit rather than full fledged. The machines are controlling everything. What did you think, Late, about that sentiment? Because that's a good point, Ed.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting contrast because when I first saw Dime's Discount, with it looked kind of run down. You have the refinery in the background. The first time I know that you visit, the sky to me looked kind of an unnatural color, which I assume is from air pollution. I may be reading too much into that, but I kind of had this picture in my head of this rundown little convenience store, and so Troy was the perfect person to be there because that's the type of person I expect to encounter at somewhere like that. But then you
Mm-hmm.
find out, yeah, that it's being effectively, I guess, ran by just this automated system, which seemed totally out of place. It's almost like they didn't bother to update anything else in that higher place. They just stuck a robot as a counter and kind of called it good. And I just thought that contrast was interesting.
Yeah, kind of like, oh, this will do for now. Or maybe like we're testing it out or something.
Yeah, maybe
It's
I don't know what it's like around there, but my experience from where I grew up is that bot probably wouldn't have survived very long there before it started getting vandalized and Troy had to come back to the counter anyway.
that's hilarious. Okay, that oh man, that would have been cool to see that happen. Somebody just busts that machine. Oh man, I would have loved to have seen that happen in the game. But no, it's just this cold calculating machine. So you have to get a fuse and pay for it to fix the motorcycle or the truck. Something. Something back at
You
your
get the
house.
motorcycle. You use the
The
fuse to
motorcycle.
do the film. Yeah.
Thank you, because there are two vehicles in that backyard, a motorcycle and a truck. So then you
Hmm.
head to a place that, oh my gosh, Sarpy Paperbacks. It is in this little, and I've seen places like this in certain parts of like New Orleans and outside of New Orleans, even in my area. It's like you'll have uh, I think they had like a loan place, like a payday loan. Then you
Yeah.
have Starkey paperbacks, and there are these people just hanging out. There's a dog with them. There's this guy who's saying he's trying to do something essentially similar to Uber and drive people around. It's just, again, that's where the weariness comes in. People are just hanging out and just trying to make do with, and I guess they just got off work or they're out of school and just hanging out in this little kind of rundown part of town. And again, you're still looking for Blake. Oh, you want to say something, Ed?
No, once again, this is an important area because it plays a part later on in the game.
Yes, very much so. So at Sarpy Paperbacks, you talk to Erica, who runs the store, and you're asking her, like, have you seen Blake? And she thinks, like, oh, I think he's been to the bar lately, but haven't really seen him too much. And you can look around and you can read some different book titles. There's a little cat named Crouton, and you can see Crouton in a few different areas of the game, actually, besides Sarpy Paperbacks. I tried my darndest to beat this mini game challenge, and I would always fail on the fifth challenge. If you pet Crouton correctly, which is playing that Simon Says game again, he or she will launch into outer space because it's so stimulated from your petting. I'd failed. Did y'all manage to launch Crouton into outer space?
I did. That scene is great. I recorded myself playing through this game so I could go back and take notes and things. And I
Mm-hmm.
intend to get a clip of that and share it on social media because it's really good. Like, I guess you saw the farther you go, it starts vibrating and its head is just getting faster and faster in the
The
vibrations. And
heart eyes, like little heart
Yeah.
yeah,
eyes of the
and
cat.
yeah, when you beat the final one, it just rockets straight up and through the ceiling. And Erica is not happy at all.
Uh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ed.
I got the two because I had to progress in the story, so I didn't get to that. I didn't know that he would write it off or anything. And it was kind of cool seeing the counter of you being successful petting him or petting the cat.
I did something else to scare the cat, but we'll get to that later. I had another person or animal in my party who affected the cat greatly.
Oh wow, which is one thing about this, that cats are big in this game, and there's only like one dog, which is once again an important part to this game. And it was kind of weird. You would think that with all the cats that you see around in the game, that they would be important part uh, as of being used to what this game not use be of use of to this game, and they're not. They're just there being cats.
They're so cute. So after you leave Sarpy Books, we actually get to play as Catherine. We have a flashback to when she's sick, and you don't really know what's going on at first. You are learning that she's trying to decide which memories of hers to keep or delete. So I kept all of her memories. What did y'all do?
I got rid of two of them.
I kept all of them. I think at first I didn't really get what was happening, and then I guess I was kind of committed to keeping them all, so I just kept with that. So what happens,
Okay.
Ed, if you delete some of them?
Not much. It just feels like um the stuff that isn't important to you. If you get rid of them, most of everything you just keep and stuff because they don't play in no part of the game or anything. Um, like even when you get to the third act and some things happen, it doesn't play a part in it. So it's just like you get to choose what is important to you or what isn't and stuff. So
Okay.
you do have the option of getting rid of all of her memories and everything. Like whatever you see where the trash can is at, you get rid of it if you want it.
Okay. Because apparently there is an achievement called "Forget It" if you delete all of her memories.
Hmm.
But I didn't really know what was going on either, late to gaming. But I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep them all, just whatever. So you find out she's at this place called the Greater New Orleans Versioning Center, and she's trying to preserve her memories for Kay and Blake. So if you've played Soma, which we did cover, that's the vibe I got from this, where you're trying to copy your memories and put them into some kind of software that people can access to make it a little bit easier on them after you've passed away. Is is that what y'all thought about it, or am I completely off base?
No, I didn't understand why. I thought all everything that you was connecting and everything was kind of just something that was going to play a part into the game. I kind of felt like this is uh I guess like detective work in a sense, because it kind of
Mm,
felt like you was connecting the dots for something, and it was going to reveal something in the end, and then when you realize that no, it's not, you know, because it was a brain kind of transfer, or something, you was just like, oh, this doesn't play a part, this doesn't pay off or anything, but it's cool that this happened, that that it did it. It is, like I said, once again, very sci-fi, of it, and I think this is where the the story really starts taking place, or really start not taking place, really starts shaping, because now you're playing as you get into this detective, not so much noir kind of vibe to it, but you kind of start really getting into the adventure game aspect of the point and click,
mhm.
and so you started getting more of the story about what's going on, and then compared to what's happening in the present.
Hmm. What about you, Late?
So I didn't really think of Soma at the time, but I think that's a pretty good comparison. I think that um, it's not obvious to me if you're actually replicating your entire consciousness in the same way that happened in that game, or if it's more of just kind of imprinting your memories on some sort of AI that can, like you said, kind of help your family. Um, once you're gone, just to have still a part of you to kind of talk with. It reminded me a lot of. I wish I'd looked this up, but there was an episode of that show Black Mirror
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
dealt with someone doing something very similar, where there was an AI that they could call, I think, and it was their lost loved one's voice, and they kind of it pretended to be them, and they were able to kind of carry on a little bit of a relationship with them after the loved one had passed on to help ease that transition. And that's more of what I kind of had in mind when I was thinking about the way that it seemed that the versioning was working.
I wonder. I need to watch Black Mirror first of all, very much so. I haven't watched it yet. I really want to watch it. Um, I wonder if it's kind of like those holograms that people are using now for like Tupac
Yeah,
and performers. Maybe that's kind of what it is. I don't know. Maybe I could. I get. I don't know.
it's kind of like transferring your consciousness. So if you're thinking of Ghost in the Shell, the
Okay.
anime or the manga or the movie, where it's kind of like your brain and its thoughts, even though the brain and stuff is kind of in a shell, in a cybernetic shell, you're kind of transferring your thoughts and your consciousness to a database in a sense. So if anything needs to happen or you need to find something, you can re-upload it and everything. And it kind of
Hmm.
feels like um it kind of feels like there is a human that's there, but in reality it's just really data in a sense. Um
Hmm.
and so you're just uploading, it's turning your thoughts to make your um imaginary thoughts or whatever into a physical thing in a sense.
Hmm. It was. It plays a huge part in the game, though. Just
Hmm.
the versioning. Oh, it's pretty significant in the game. So we also learn this hit a lot. I haven't dealt with this, and I hope I never do, but I know so many people do. Catherine is struggling with medical debt because she's been getting all these treatments for her cancer. And you can actually pull up her phone and read some different things. She's trying to make some money to leave to her children because I'm assuming they will not inherit her medical debt. I don't think that's legal. That's not for them to deal with. But she's working through something called the Quack Job app. There's this little duck on her phone, and she's doing these different odd jobs, and it's telling her where to go. And she has to take a ride share type of app, and it'll actually show you different parts of New Orleans, real places. And you can go from the Greater New Orleans Clinic to the overpass and Perdido Street and the French Quarter. So I don't know if when you're right outside of the clinic, I think it's the overpass when you see the cars driving back and forth. There's this giant billboard of an injury attorney.
Yeah.
I don't know how big they are in your areas, but I had to pause the game because I was laughing so hard. Because that one was a riff on one named Morris Bart. One call, that's all. That is his tagline. You see so many of those billboards around here. I've seen his commercials. There a few years ago, a New Orleans kid, I think, loved him so much that they wanted a birthday party based off Morse Bart with cutouts and everything. So are injury attorneys that big in your neck of the woods?
So it they're not big, but we get the commercials. So we don't
Okay.
have the billboards, but we get the commercials.
Yeah, here we have both, and yeah, there are several that are kind of those big characters. There's one
Mm-hmm.
in particular that his self-given nickname is the Hammer, and so
Do we all have a hammer?
I think
so
I
yeah,
seen that commercial. I think someone did. I think someone was reported on that commercial that he got like this big camera. Yeah, I think it's Legal Eagle on YouTube. He did. There was I think a lawsuit between two lawyers because they was calling themselves the Hammer.
yeah, I can believe it.
so so you know what I'm talking about. Like you've seen this
Yeah,
before.
definitely.
It's that sent me. I was like, "Oh man, I know exactly who this is." They don't call that person Morris Bart obviously, but I was like, "I know exactly which attorney this is." So you can then go to the French Quarter, and the French Quarter is very beautiful during the daytime. if you, I've lived here my whole life. I have actually never done the whole party on Bourbon Street thing.
Mm-hmm.
I much prefer to go in the French Quarter during the daytime and take my time strolling and not stepping in vomit. Because I think a lot of times tourists come, and that's great. Thank you. Please continue to come and spend your money here. But a lot of people like to party and everything, and you get to see the French Quarter at night. And there is a New Orleans icon represented in a few New Orleans icons. They're called Lucky Dogs, but they don't call them that in this game. But I don't think Lucky Dogs are quite as bad as what this hot dog vendor is selling. I've never had one. I've never had a French Quarter hot dog, but I think they're much better than this. This guy is selling like 10-year-old hot dogs because he's saying he doesn't want to lose a profit. Oh man. Oh my goodness. And then you have $1 and he's asking you for money. There's a guy dressed up like Santa asking you for money. There are these two homeless people asking for money. There's a little tour group who's not even being guided by a real tour guide who are
Yeah.
freaking out. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never done the French Quarter tours or anything. Usually whenever I go to New Orleans, I'm just like, I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to a museum. I don't do the tours, although that probably would be a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard. But I gave my money to the homeless people, but apparently you're supposed to give it to Santa for an achievement.
Yes, because it plays a part in the second act.
Oh, I messed up.
No, because it plays a part in the second act, and you will probably be upset on why it plays a part in it. So I can't reveal it until we get there.
Oh,
But I brought the man to go get the hot dog,
oh, me
and
too. Me too.
I which is good, which is fine. You're supposed to do that because you got to get the code to go into the door. The thing about it is that in the second act, and this is kind of optional if you want to find out about it, you talk to that guy, and he tells you the story of about what happens after eating the hot dog. Because I think Santa or
Oh,
someone,
oh my god.
yeah. So if you listen to the whole thing, you do get an achievement for it. So let's just say that he team rocketed in a limousine, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
It's not Santa. It's the guy standing in front of the door, or like who's under an over. Oh, it's the guy under the overpass who's hungry,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's not Santa, but you send the guy to go get a dumpy dog, and yeah, you'll find him outside of a club later on.
Hmm.
Absolutely, listen to his story. That is one of the best poop stories I have ever heard in my
I,
entire
I,
life.
that's why I said he team rocketed in the limousine, and
I
you just got to go, and it was just like, and just the cadence of Kate, the way that you just start keep talking
Oh,
to him,
Catherine's.
Kath,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and oh, Catherine, yeah, and it's just like, oh, I'm really interested. It was Catherine, yeah. I'm really interested. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And so he's just like, "Are you sure you're not weirded out by this? It's too disgusting."
Mm-mm.
And she's just like, "No, I want to hear all of." She was enjoying and getting her life for this.
It gave me life.
Yes,
I will
so
say that.
that's great writing right there. Uh, with it and stuff.
Hmm.
But when you get into the next part, and you meet this person, who's supposed to kind of like lead you to your next objective, she's just like, I gotta clean my my crystal ball and stuff. Don't touch it. And every time you try to go touch it, she'll be like, kind of hit your hand and be like, don't touch it. I gotta
Oh,
clean it.
you. So did you? I think LateToGaming wants to say something. He might be wanting to talk about a potentially missable achievement.
Oh, go ahead, Nate.
Maybe, I don't know. I was going to ask. So the guy that you recruit to buy the hot dog, when you're doing that, did either of you watch the play that was being put on?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Under the overpass, like this
Yes.
little hand shadow puppet show.
Right. Yeah. What
Yeah.
did you guys think about that?
I Okay, so it's a cool mini game to play as. When you're doing the ship and you're going everything. Um what ended up happening with me though is that I ended up getting eaten by the crocodile, by the alligator, even though I killed the fisherman who I think kill or did something to one of his members and stuff, because the alligator, just like, he treated me. The alligator was gonna come be my pet again or something like that. But because of what the fisherman did to, I guess, his baby or whatever, uh he he wanted you to go kill him and stuff. And you could kill him, or you could like join him and kill the alligator and stuff. But I killed both. I killed the guy, and then I got killed by the alligator. Uh and I thought it was really cool, seeing that, but then also seeing that in the mall. I was just like, oh wow. I'm like, this is cool that they did that in her thing. Um and I thought it was gonna be like hand puppets and stuff, but no, it was just this hand doing this and doing the
Yeah. Little.
talking and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So which choice did you make, Celeste, in the end?
Um, I went with the shrimper because I'm terrified of alligators. So I did get delight seeing the billboards about like gator farms and stuff, because actually in the city next to me there is a gator farm. In fact, a lot of school children will go there on field trips, and they have little baby alligators, and of course they wrap tape around their snouts so they can't bite, and they can hold alligators and everything. And I have never had an alligator in my yard, but I have seen like dead ones on the road near the bayous and
Hmm.
stuff. And there are some restaurants, Cajun restaurants along the bayou, and if you sit out, you're like, oh look, there's a gator. They don't bother you as long as you don't bother them. But I don't know. By the way, the writing for this story is absolutely beautiful, and the
Yes.
gator
Yes.
is very convincing if you decide to go with the gator. I can see why you'd go with the gator, but I don't know. I was just curious. I want to see what's going to happen with the shrimper. And that's the quote unquote correct choice. You will not get eaten by the alligator. What about you, Late?
So this was ended up being one of my favorite little sequences, just because I thought the story was, it was just really compelling. Like, I thought that like you said, it was beautifully told. I thought it was very sad. Both the description of what had happened to the skater's offspring, and then the fact that it had been basically domesticated and turned into a pet, as talking about being led on a leash and being given a name and being fed. It was something in deli meat. I can't remember what the other thing was, but uh, it made me kind of really sympathize with this gator, and I just thought it was really nice little, I don't know, this little interlude in the middle of this larger story. And then the
Right.
billboards, I love that. The billboards with the hand puppet, the shadow puppet.
Mm-hmm.
I thought those were just great. I I thought it was so kind of it's kind of off the wall, and it was just um I don't know, but yeah, I did the same as Ed. I went. Actually, I didn't even question it. I had the choice. I immediately shot the shrimper. It was just immediate. Like I was totally on the alligator side.
Gosh, okay, so I played this game last month, and you played a little bit more recently. What, like, do you think there's some symbolism to the alligator betraying you? Just, gosh, there probably is. You don't write something like that and not have some deeper meaning to it.
Well, alligators are full of crock.
Thank you for that. But I don't know if we said this, but like the mini game, you're in a little boat in the bayou. It's very cool, and you have to navigate and not hit the shorelines. So fishing and shrimping and crabbing are huge industries down here, and catching there are gator farms as well. So yeah, it was beautiful. So I'm going to be honest with you, I was not expecting to see that hand puppet thing under the overpass. I on a sadder note, I'm surprised I didn't see tent city of homeless people, to be honest with you.
Oh wow, yeah, because I know
Hmm.
after they left, it was a person in the back in a tent that was there, and it was just like, I'm just trying to survive, but the
Hmm.
cops keep busting up my stuff and everything. So it was
Hmm.
just like after you play the game and you go back to the overpass, as Catherine, they left, and you see this person sitting down, and I guess they're living under the overpass. And you could interact, like find more about why they're being there. It's not too long of an interaction, but when you mentioned that, so I'm just like, but there was a tent there and another person, and I didn't think about any homelessness at that
Hmm.
about that.
They're very common under the overpasses in like Metairie and New Orleans. We go to New Orleans about once a month, and if you go by the central business district, and there are some overpasses, you'll see a ton of tents. Not in like the shopping areas, but under the overpasses where there are no shops or anything, and it's very sad. It's very sad. Um, that's what I was expecting to see instead of a puppet show, and I guess I'm kind of happy there was a puppet show instead. Um, but yeah, like Ed was saying, you have to complete this task on the Quack Job app, and you're supposed to meet up with somebody named Dallas. You go to Miss Rosie's shop, and she tells you what you need to do, and apparently he's waiting outside, and his name is Dallas. So I love Dallas.
Oh, I love him too. I he such a great written character, and man, there's a point where they're at the club and the dude is playing bounce music, and he's just like, "You playing bounce music for all these white people?" And they just get into it and everything. And he mentions the dude asks him like, "Well, what do you love?" He's just like, "I love Christmas music all year round." And
we, we learned that about him.
you go
He's
you
so
yeah,
good.
you go to his house, or because you have the option to go to his house and you get an achievement for this. You go in and you see your daughter and your grandson, and there's
Hmm.
a Christmas tree sitting right there, and they give you a tie, and you can put that if you put the tie on, you get an achievement for that also. So he was telling the truth that you know he loves Christmas, and or he loves Christmas music because it relaxes him. And you touch on the tree, and he was just like, it's never too late or never too early to have a Christmas tree sitting in your home.
And this is that character you talked about late about his car being flooded due to the pump
Yeah.
failures.
Right. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I think visiting his home, I think that was a nice touch. Just that scene, seeing him interact with his family, because he's a little different with his family than I think than what you get to see when you're out in public with him, and you really kind of get to see this kind of private side of him. And I think that was just a really nice little touch, and I'm glad they put that optional scene in there.
It
Can I
was it was cool. Yeah,
can I can,
absolutely.
can I say that I really felt like Catherine and Dallas should have fell in love and become a couple.
Oh,
Something about their relationship with them working together really made them feel like they were going to be falling in love and stuff because
I could see that.
she didn't love Blue, but the neighborhood loved Blue who knew him. To For something about Dallas, it felt like Dallas and Catherine, even though they have their own agenda stuff, it just really felt like those two together just felt right as a couple. Like they felt like soulmates that you wish that there was some written dialogue or something that they fell in love.
Yes, and thank you, by the way. We haven't touched on this, but Blue is the name of Catherine's husband and the father of Kay and Blake. He passed away, and yeah, you can actually, if you explore the house, you can learn a little bit more about him at Catherine's house. But after you meet up with Dallas, you go to this warehouse and you click on this prompt and you see this grotesque creature. It
Yeah,
looks like an eagle or something. It's apparently called Super Duck, and it's the one that is giving you the instructions on what you need to do, and what it wants. It wants this orb that it sees in the swamp. And then we get back to Kay's story, actually. So we are back into the present time, and you can go to the Floodgate Tavern now if you've already unlocked it, and otherwise you have to go through a few different steps. So you're looking for Blake again in the present day, and you can talk to probably one of my favorite characters, Brett LeBlanc. And he's like a private detective. He's a what does he call it? Private investigator? Yeah, like he spies on people for you. He's a character. He's like, I'll give you some information if you buy me a beer. So you talk to the barkeeper. Okay, he gives you some information. I'll keep talking if you buy me another beer. I'll keep talking if you buy me some food. So you keep humoring him, and he gives you some information on what's going on, with Blake and your mom. And you learned there was this guy named Paw Paw, which is a common name for a grandpa down here and probably elsewhere, I'm sure.
hmm
And he's telling you that this guy was like infatuated with Catherine and the whole family for some reason. And you can start asking about Shield. You can start you can watch the TV and you learn that there was this guy who was, I guess he's siphoning or blowing up the Shield pipes out in
yeah,
the swamps. And you can ask him about that. Do you know this person? Because the man's face is on these wanted posters on TV. And you learn about these characters named Laura St. Clair and her father, who run Shield down here and down there in Norco. And I think one of Late's favorite characters is also in the bar, Keith.
Yes, Keith Broussard. He he
Yes.
isn't featured very much, but I think he would be a really good character to get to see more of. He's a conspiracy theorist who's working on a website with all these crazy conspiracies. And later, near the end of the game, he pops in with like this intro, like this teaser for his website that I think is just hilarious. I would. It makes me wish that was the real website I could go and watch just to see his very passionate delivery of his conspiracy theories.
He was so funny. And he's knows your family. Again, it's like it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody else. And
hmm
he went to school with Catherine and everything. And so you then learn that you need to break into the Shield refinery. That's a huge task. I mean, you're taking on this corporation. That's where you think you'll find your brother. And Ed, you had alluded to this. It turns out Blake would sometimes sleep at the tavern, but Gus kicked him out because he was stealing money from the register.
yes.
Yeah, so Blake had some troubles. So then after you go through all this, you head to this area called Dimes and you meet this gentleman named Duck. This part I was a little nervous because it was dark in his house and I'm like, am I about to see a body? Is somebody going to jump out at me? But Duck, who's a really good friend of your mother's, he is dying as well from cancer. He's on oxygen, and you can ask him all these different questions. And it turns out that you start talking to him about this ring that's this big deal to your mom that her grandfather gave her years ago. And you can go into his office, you can read his computer, you can open up these different um, boxes and learn about his wife. I believe Duck was married and his wife passed away. And
His
help me,
son,
is it
his son
his
passed away.
his son passed away and I believe it was from an explosion, right? From Shield.
Yeah, I believe it was a pipeline explosion in their front yard or backyard. I think, if I remember
Backyard,
correctly.
in their backyard.
Yes, because they are a fence line community. Dimes is considered a fence line community, and they're right there by Shield. And when I was looking on the Norco website at their different resources from their bibliography, there were some explosions, kind of like LateToGaming and you, Ed, were talking about that were horrible. Like this one kid who was like 16 years old, I think he was in the 80s or the 70s. He was starting a lawnmower, and it ignited this explosion because there was a leak, and he died in real life Norco. Oh God, this whole game gets so sad. Oh, God. But then you can go to this terminal on Duck's computer, and I liked this puzzle where you have to maneuver the Shield security drone. So Duck,
Hmm.
he's older, but he's very tech savvy, and he's trying to help you get into Shield, and you can change the locations of these different cameras and guards. I really liked that puzzle. What did y'all
The
think?
the drone stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, it took me a while because I had to move some stuff and everything, and I'm just like, okay, now I get it. You know, you can't have three here because if you have three, they're gonna move back, and so I kind of just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I have to move this, I have to move that. So I got it. I This puzzle wasn't as annoying as a certain other puzzle when you play as captain. We will get into that later. But this one wasn't too hard or too challenging. It takes a few tries to figure it out, but it was a really cool puzzle. I like the way that, you know, even in at his age and in his condition, he is still fighting the good fight in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was kind of cool to see. Well, I won't say cool, but I know it was going for that thriller jump scare moment where
Mm-hmm.
he's in the dark because you don't see a shadow of him or anything. You click it on, and then you just see him like smiling at you or looking at you and stuff. And this it's because of the sprites, the way that the sprite and the design of it. And to let everybody know, this game doesn't have voice acting, but they got the mumble jumble talk. They be like for some of these conversations that you're having with these characters. And so Duck was really like, you really feel for him, and he's the kind of person that, man, you know, yes, everybody else in the neighborhood moved out or was brought in out, but he stood his ground. He was just like, I would die on this rock. This is my house. No one is gonna take it away from me. If they want it, they're gonna have to take it after I die. And you know, and he's still living.
Wait, do you have any thoughts on this part or this character?
Yeah, I think as Ed was talking there, I was thinking that sorry, Duck. He feels very much like that. This kind of that character who he's older, he's seen life, he's dealt with a bunch of crap probably in his past, and he's done dealing with it, and he's just You say he's standing his ground. He's going to stay there until they kick him out or until he dies, and they have to haul his body away. And I kind of have a lot of respect for someone like that. So I think it was a nice character, and then but he's also very important to the story. I can't
Yeah.
remember. I think we started to learn in this scene about his connection to Super Duck. Is that right?
Yeah.
I
So
can't remember.
when it gets to um the act 3,
Okay.
because
I was thinking he might drop some hints here, but maybe I'm confusing it with another
Is
no, no,
sequence.
is
no,
he?
no, because in Act 3, so just to move a little bit forward, in Act 3, when you and LeBlanc goes to Duck House, and you're looking for Duck, you find him in the room where you was playing, moving all the drones, and he's sitting there, sleep, and you wake him up, and he tells you, about the Super Duck, that was kind of based off his memories, his the visionary thing that Catherine does. He kind of does the same thing too, and so they use that to make a Super Duck, because the Garretts, they want his old like modem kind of thing and stuff. And that modem or whatever that internet thing was the thing for Super Duck.
Yeah, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this episode, you've played the games because we've just spoiled a whole lot of stuff for you. But yeah, you do learn that Duck was doing a versioning as well, like Catherine
Yeah,
was, but his went a little awry, so to speak. But this this part, oh man, the next part, you have to go to the mausoleum. You're instructed to go to the mausoleum where your mom is buried, and this is a little morbid. Like you go to the mausoleum and you use a pry bar to open up your mom's vault, and it's empty except for a letter and Catherine's ring. Um, so not only is your brother missing, your mother's corpse is missing too. And I kept thinking, okay, who on earth wants anything to do with my mother's corpse? And they must also have Blake as well if they're taking my mom. And so you are then pulled to the Batteur, which is behind Dime's Discount, and you meet the guy who was on TV. Lucky. Lucky is probably my favorite NPC in this game.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
I like Duck. Duck is my guy. Lucky is cool too. I like how he was used in this game, and then how you have to find. Well, I won't get into that. I'll let you talk about that first, Celeste.
Yeah, he's asking if you can help him find his dog Potts. And if you remember by Sarpy's bookstore, the kids who were by this dog, if you click on the dog, there's a very important description of the dog. And did you know you can make this game harder by not having keywords highlighted or change colors? Did you know that?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that in the settings, and when I initially saw it, I wasn't clear on what it meant. But then once I started playing, I quickly realized how much more difficult it would make some of these things to figure out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like little keywords for you to pay attention to will be highlighted or in different colors as you play. Um, but he's asking for his dog Potts, who is by Sarpy's bookstore. So you got to go get some dog food from Dime's Discount, and you feed Potts, who joined your party. And this is what I didn't do. What you did with Crouton LateToGaming. This is how I made Crouton launch into space. I had Potts startle her. I don't know if y'all did that,
No,
Ed.
I didn't realize you could do that.
Right.
Yeah, you can go back into Sarpy's books, and I don't know what possessed me to do it. I think I was just curious what would happen with a dog and a cat. And Erica gets incredibly mad at you and will not speak with you anymore. And in fact, the walkthrough I'm using as a guide to help me recall things, it says that if you want to unlock everything possible for Erica's mind map or other information, do not launch Crouton into space. But if you do, you get a cute phone case,
Oh
the
yeah.
crouton phone case. And I mean, these are little bonuses, but in the alligator story from the previous chapter, apparently you can find a gator phone case too in the bayou.
Yes, I found that one.
You did?
Yeah.
I did not. Is it cute?
Yeah, it's kind of cute. It's kind of just got the it's just kind of the green kind of outline, but on the top is a little gator head, like on the top part of the phone. So it's kind of cute.
Oh, Ed, did you collect any phone cases in this game?
No, I brought them. I spent the $5 for 'em.
Oh, yes. So there is a chance if you don't find them later on in the game, you can buy them if you're that kind of person that wants to collect the phone cases. So you then have Lucky, you have Kay, you have Million, and you go to the Shield refinery. And this is where it's, again, that juxtaposition between the machines and humanity. So they are guarded by these centurions and these drones, and you can fight them. You like Lucky, I guess he has a gun or something, or just hits them. But you use your different characters. But let's see, it's called a quick time event.
Mhm.
That's what these events are called. Um, so you definitely don't want to have the drones like after you disabled them with Duck's computer. It's much easier to start exploring the Shield refinery. But after you defeat these guards, you are brought to Catherine's flashback again, and this is where the game gets. I mean, it's been interesting so far, but this is where it gets extra interesting. So you play as Catherine, and you and Dallas are in front of this mall, the Promenade Mall. And I'm not for certain, but Geography of Robots, if you are listening to this, or I'm going to talk to you at some point, I know. Is this based off the Esplanade Mall in real life in Kenner? It has to be. The Promenade Mall, Esplanade Mall, it has to be. So there are these kids called Garretts. They call themselves the Garretts. That's not their real name. That's just the name they go by. They're like this little cult gang. They all wear these. They kind of remind me of like Blockbuster or
Yeah, like Blockbuster,
um
Best Buy shirts.
yes, these polos, these blue polos. They all have this weird bowl cut,
Yeah.
and their leader's name is Kenner John. Kenner is a little city like right outside of New Orleans, and there's this joke that Kenner bruh, I'm going to Kenner bruh. That's so whenever they were using bruh a lot, I was like, oh my god, Kenner
That
bruh.
that reminds me. Sorry to interrupt at this
No, no.
point, but I wanted to ask you about that, about the term "bruh" and the fact that it's spelled three different ways in the game. Is that like, are there different inflections that different demographics will use?
I've only ever seen it BRUH. In the other ways I've seen it kind of threw me off a little bit. So I'm
Mhm,
not sure if that's something because I don't live in New Orleans. Maybe I
mhm.
don't know, but uh, is that a term? I think bruh is used outside of Louisiana, like bruh. Like if you see something startling, like if Ed shot off a firework, I might go, bruh, that's loud, or bruh, that's big. Is that from in your neck of the woods?
Around here, it is a little, but I'm more associated with like more like the frat guy demographic.
Like
Um,
bro?
yeah, kind of, but yeah, that exaggerated version of that. So
Okay.
I'm not as used to seeing older men use it in the way that it was being used in this game.
We say it kind of like jokingly, like my boyfriend Timmy will be like, "Bruh, look at this," and he'll just be being silly, like he won't say it unironically in conversation. But there's like I follow some different New Orleans like subreddits and Instagram, Twitter accounts, and you'll see Kenner bruh. Like I don't know, it's funny. Like they pick on one another, like different sections of New Orleans and the suburbs outside of them will they'll be like pick your fighter and they'll have people from different TV shows representing the different parts of New Orleans and the city. So thank you for that question. I wish that I could be of more use, but I would like to interview Geography of Robots. I reached out to them and they should be available in the spring, and I'm going to ask them, excuse me, I have to know why bruh is spelled different ways because I feel very out of the loop. But yeah, Kenner John, which that name sent me, that was the best name ever. He has this apocryphon app. So these kids, they seem like misfits, but we see, especially later on in the game, they're very resourceful and very intelligent. And I wish they were using their powers, so to speak, for more productive ventures. But they kind of seem like, well, one of them for sure has a really good home life, it seems. But are they just, are they like just these outcasts? I mean, New Orleans, every big city has gangs, but they're not.
This is
I
a,
don't know.
cult, and these are just kids who are, who's kind of like ran away from home and stuff like that. Why? Because the thing about it is like the main guy, he's into the Jesus-y stuff. I won't say religion and stuff,
Mhm, mhm,
because of what he says when he's giving his final words and stuff. And so it's pretty much a cult, and they take over this mall. And as Captain, you and Dallas have to go find these three scripture readings or something to
yes.
enter the mall. Um, and with that, you download this app on your phone, so that you can see what it is. You be able to see where these three symbols are at. And you also later on get like this voice memo and everything,
Mhm,
which kind of plays a part later on in the game. And it was I messed up because I got rid of. So if you when you go find your first piece, and after you talk to the detective stuff, you go find this home, and you see this black little thing on the ground. So it's kind of like a VR thing, or
mhm.
and when you scan it, you see what the piece is, and then you get this reading. But you could go inside the garage and meet. There's a character named Bruce. You meet his dad, and you guys are talking. She kind of says, if you the dad says, if you see him, I wish you could record what I would have said to him if I ever got a chance to talk to him again. And if you got the voice memo, you can record what he says and everything and play it back for Bruce in the future. And
Yes.
I got rid of that recording on accident because you can only have a certain amount of recordings on the phone. Not just like, oh no.
I did
Uh,
too.
uh, but this was the infuriating part because I thought the mall part was really cool, but I hated going to the city council. And you go all if you don't pay attention, if you go all the way upstairs and you get to the end part because you think you can open up the door, it's locked. So they treat this section as a puzzle. This is the final kind of puzzle thing that you got to get. You gotta go all the way back down, go to the basement, talk to a guy who's squatting down, and he give you this note, and then you have to follow these directions. Uh, and you get to go up, go down, or fill around. And once after you get this note, there's three numbers that you got to get. If you fill around and you do it on the right way, you're shaking hands, but the third one grabs you and kind of shakes you and then leaves. Uh, one of the levels that you go to, it was dark, but when you go in, it's light, and you meet this person, and then you go over to the top. What I hate about this is finding the right. They give you the clue on what you need to do, but I hate that you have to go through all of these stairs. You can't jump around or anything. You gotta literally go from one to I think 1 to 10 or 1 to 9, in order to find out what is the right answer for this. So I did cheat on this one. I went to YouTube, found a video guide. Let me see the last three numbers. Okay, let me do it. Found it, and then went up. I had to cheat because I didn't feel like dealing with this nonsense. I'm like, why would you put a puzzle like this inside of a, a seek and search or whatever of it? So
Oh,
I was like,
that ugh. That didn't bother me as much as the fact that it's dark and people are touching you. That would have bothered me tremendously in real life. I don't I would be like, "I give up. I don't need the money this badly. I am not going into empty stairwells at night to get on top of this." But you at one point while you're collecting these virtual sculptures, you meet Pawpaw, the ditch man. He lives in a ditch, a drainage canal right outside of the mall. And I
Yes.
will say, he like you have your phone up, and his silhouette is like slowly making its way closer to you. Did y'all? It freaked me out. Freaked me
He
out.
came out from the left, so
Oh, mine was the
because
right, I think.
I
Maybe.
see, I
Yeah.
see, I seen where the part was at, but he was coming from the. So when you're watching it, yeah, he does come from the right, but it looks like he's entering, like headed towards your left, going like everybody who's
Mm.
seeing it is probably is showing that I'm probably doing this, but it's going like this way. So it's just like, what in the world is this man doing,
Mm-mm.
or who is this?
Mm-mm.
And yeah, you kind of find out who he is, and it was funny because you talk to LeBlanc because he actually, when you guys are talking and stuff, there's a point that you get mad at him because he asked you a question about Blue, and if you talk to him again, there's a bag of chips underneath the car,
Oh,
and
it's Keith. Keith. Keith Broussard is the one in the car outside of the mall.
oh, okay, so
That's
that's Keith.
that's yeah, the outside of the mall, it's missable, but you can talk to Keith Broussard, by the way.
Yes. So I talked to him one time. I mean, I talked to him again. He left because he called it a knife. I grabbed the chips, went back to the mall entrance, or the back of the mall, and gave the chips to the boy to the first Garrett you meet, who got kicked out. He got kicked out the court, and but if you like give him the chips and stuff, you get an achievement for it, but you also are able to like kind of find the code and stuff and open the door, because you give him the chips and he speaks something to you, and you use that to open up the door to get into the mall. I thought that was really cool.
That was cool. What do you think about like Pawpaw and this whole situation before we move on to we're going to be becoming K again in a minute.
So I was, because I was recording video of me playing through, I was kind of narrating and reading out loud all of the text.
Mhm.
So I was reading that, and my focus was up, on that side of the screen. And there was this movement coming from off screen that I was kind of ignoring. And then he just kind of glides into the screen and takes focus, and it was so creepy. I just, I just kind of had to take a minute because it was just very well done, and that kind of sets the stage for my relationship with Ditchman. I think, but I like his character a lot. He's kind of out there, and some of what he says is pretty kind of bizarre, but I like the character, and um, I wouldn't say he's not my favorite, but he's probably up there for me.
He's very affectionate towards Catherine, and you find out why later. He's pretty much been stalking her. He's been stalking Kay somehow. He's been stalking Blake, and we'll explain why later. And I did some research on this, and it's actually related to a real life situation.
Oh,
Um, yeah, which I did not know about. But yeah, Papa, he's very poetic. He's I thought he kind of looked like not Marilyn Manson, Charles Manson,
Mm-hmm.
because he has like these scar carvings. I don't know if that's just the furrow of his skin or his brow, but it looks like he has a cross on his forehead. He just
He
looks very
does.
bizarre.
He does. It's
Um,
very Catholic of it in a sense.
yes,
Uh,
yes, and
but
so
he was their next door neighbor, so that's why he knows so much about them.
that's Brett, who's their next door neighbor, actually.
I thought
at,
Ditchman was his next door neighbor too.
at one point, Ditchman claims to have been their next door neighbor.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Because I thought he just lived in the ditch. I forgot about that. Okay, he knew where yeah, he's weird, and he'll become very prominent later on. But he's something. So then after, yeah, go ahead.
This is the part where you mentioned, the dollar with Santa Claus. So if you there's a Garrett that you meet in there, and he just said, "Hey, I need a little bit something, Dishman, to give me energy," and you have three ways of getting it. The first way is you could go back to the club and talk to a guy, or no, talk to this girl, and Captain ends up paying it. So you got some drugs. You could go to this park, and he goes into a toilet stool and gets his
Hmm.
drugs there. And you could also see him go to the bathroom and the urinal if you want to for achievement. Third is that you could get drugs from Santa Claus if you gave him the dollar.
I did the bathroom in Lafreniere Park, which I've been to Lafreniere Park. They have beautiful lights at Christmas time,
Mhm.
and I've never experienced a pawpaw giving me drugs in the bathroom.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did the same. And at first, I thought that he was just going in there and like finding them that had been hidden, like up behind the toilet or something. But
mhm.
I guess someone said something later, or maybe I read it in a walkthrough. I can't remember, but I got the impression that he was actually going in there and scraping like some mold or some kind of growth up, and that
Oh,
was
I
the drug
I
that was actually giving the kid.
I don't know.
I don't put it past him.
It looked it very to me. It looked it sexual in a sense because I'm just like, what are you doing that? It looked weird. But then to get the drugs from Santa Claus, I thought literally was so funny. That they gave you those three options, and you only could give him one of the drugs, I believe, to that Garrett. So it's kind of it all some of the stuff that plays a part because you meet the guard and who's guarding this door, and he's talking about all of these rules that everybody need to follow and stuff. And if you go around and you record certain lines from people and play it
Hmm.
back to them, that makes them mad, and least like he kind of ends up quitting it. So he's against porn, drugs, video games, all of that stuff. And the people that you interact, they're the ones, if you record them and play it back to them, the drugs that you give to the one kid, because it's a guy, adult giving a kid drugs. What that drugs are, I don't know, but you give him, like, I'm assuming cocaine or something like that, uh, which ends up playing a part when what's his name is giving his speech. But we'll get into that part later.
Yeah, it can be hard to keep track too because you go from Catherine to Kay,
Hmm.
and you do go back to Kay's section in modern day, and you fight these shield drones and these robots, and it's very like cyberpunky, and you actually have to bring this drone creature to the flame at the refinery, and then you get into this big fight sequence, and this distracts these guards in front of the Shield HQ, which kind of looks like a plantation a little bit. It has that vibe to it, like a mansion. And there's a masquerade going on, which I thought was a nice nod to Mardi Gras season, possibly. I'm not sure what time of year this game takes place, but it like people are wearing masks, people are drinking, they're having revelry, and you can talk with different people, and you can actually talk with Laura St. Clair's father. Is it Thomas? I believe his name is Thomas St. Clair.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you I figured out which one he is. Did you figure out which one he is?
I don't remember.
He's at the masquerade. He is dressed like a crow or like a raven.
Uh-huh.
You never see his face,
But he
but
always
he's
know who you are. Yeah.
mm-hmm. He knows who you are, and you can actually. This part is pretty sad. You can actually go and talk with Laura St. Clair, and it sounds. So she's been trying. She was working with your mom, Catherine, to try to get this orb in the swamp, which Catherine was seeking for Super Duck, and she has a lot of regrets. To me, it kind of sounds like she realizes what Shield has done to the locals, and they're sick. They're impoverished. The environment's been messed up. They're just everyday people, and Shield is actually trying to kick her out. She's the CEO, and she and her dad actually, I don't know if he like legally disowned her or something, but she was so focused on having Shield, using Shield's resources to go and chase this orb in the swamps, that they were actually planning on kicking her off her 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 designation, her designation as a CEO.
Yeah.
And this part was really sad. After you leave her office.
Hold on before you get there.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hold on before you get there. So before all of that is set up, Bruce is kind of talking about the rocket thing, and
Yes, you get to meet
everything.
the
So
man's son. He's at this masquerade.
yeah, so you he's drunk and all, you use him to open up the door to go upwards to go see her. And uh the the thing about it is that Laura and Shield has come and broken into uh Catherine's house and took some stuff from her, and
Hmm.
you're trying to recover it back. But Laura ends up giving it to you. She just like, go take it. There's not really anything there. It's besides like the dime discount card and stuff like there. Uh, and so you do all of that, and you're just hearing her speak in like this sad voice. Um, you get the box and you get the contents and you walk away, and you get to the end of where you're about to go back into the elevator, and you hear a gunshot. She ends up killing herself
Hmm.
um in it. uh
Exactly.
so you kind of now have these kind of two storylines, one with Catherine and one with Kate. Am I saying her name right?
Okay.
Kay. I
Okay.
said Kate. Uh, and
Close, very
Kay.
close.
Uh, because um, when you're in the mall, you end up getting the right orb because there's something attached to you that it likes, and you use that to um literally go back and give that to Super Duck. Um, with Kate and everything, you get this card, um, and you go to the discount store, you use it to find out, and it tells you that it's a fake card. Now, earlier we talked about the Mary statue. When you kind of find out, if you touch on a Mary statue, it reveals itself to be a card reader in it. And it goes like, you hear it. You put that funny card in, and then you hear something that opens up. If you didn't search around in the attic, you wouldn't know where to go. So when you go in and you get into the attic, you see that Captain has a setup. I'm gonna let you turn it over to you, Celeste, because
Oof.
this part is definitely this is definitely in a way Snatcher material in a sense, but it doesn't play out in a way of Snatcher, and I'll explain why.
Um, so you start poking around at her different computer terminals, and you can actually hear her versioning, and it's like you're trying to communicate with her. Million suddenly snaps, and she goes at the screen to you, Catherine. You hear a scream, and that's where the scene ends, and you play as Catherine again, and that's where like the different drug things and the Garretts, you explore them all. And so, Late, is there anything you wanted to say before we talk
Yeah.
about like the whole Garrett situation in the mall?
No, I don't think so. I think you guys pretty well covered all of that. I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay. Well, let me
Yeah.
bring up the Snatcher thing. So, in Snatcher, there is the what Snatcher is about is that these robots are kind of taking the skin of humans or the likeness of humans, and they're putting it on their robotic body and stuff. And the thing about Snatchers is that they have to protect themselves sun rays of the sun. So they've been putting on sun lotion and everything to protect themselves. And in the second act, or the first act or second act of Snatcher, there is a shower scene where one of the girls that you've been talking to, who's been helping you like go to different places, she's holding her hands on part of her face. And the reason why she's doing that is because she's a snatcher. You can her skin came off
Oh.
and you will see the metal part. When that gets
Oh.
revealed, you go into this action sequence where you must shoot her and stuff because she's attacking you. And it's the same way that Million almost attacks you when it snaps and it opens up and everything. But you don't fight Million and stuff. You end up hearing about Million attacking you when it comes to the third act. So that's where
Okay,
that Snatcher comparison comes.
I'm gonna have to
This
play
is
Snatcher.
this is the thing. Well, talk to your boyfriend on how to play Snatcher because it's not available. And this Snatcher is a game by Konami. Um, Police, and also Hideo Kojima, I think also did Police Knots, which is a big thing. But Snatcher is one of the games that I regret not buying because I didn't have a Sega CD. It was only $19.99 at KB Toy Store when I was a kid when it came out, and that game is worth a lot. And everybody like me wants Snatcher to come out on Nintendo Switch. I want them to bring this game back out because if you play Snatcher, you can watch. There's a full playthrough on YouTube, but Snatcher is one of the games that I always wanted to play. So that's why I keep bringing that game up with Norco, with some of the influences and seeing.
No, I appreciate it because I haven't played it. Have you played Snatcher, Late?
No, I haven't. It's on my list. It was covered by, I think, another podcast, which I know you also listen to. Um, and so I looked it up because I want to add a Sega CD to my collection. But yeah, like Ed said, it's outrageously expensive. So I've not had the opportunity.
Yeah, Retrovaniacs covered it.
Yep.
Yeah. This
Yes,
this
thank
was a
you.
yeah. It's not, and there's a code to Snatch on the Sega CD Celeste if you ever play it. That's the way that you can see the blood in the real version of the game, because there is a point where a guy's head is ripped off.
Oh God.
It's not you don't see it being ripped off, but the way that it's designed is it's so cool that they did this in the 90s. So
Well,
yeah.
this explains something about. Speaking of ripping off heads, just I can see the connection coming up a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, you're back with Catherine Dallas and Pawpaw, and you're trying to unlock these different things in the mall. You're trying to get to this secret room where it looks like Pawpaw was staying, and Pawpaw has ulterior motives with the Garretts. He wants to take over. He wants to replace Kinner John,
Yeah.
and you actually go to Pawpaw's room, and I don't know if you picked up on this. Okay, so like there's this jar, and it's rambling. It sounds like there's somebody in there, and you have to record this message in the background. That's Pawpaw says called Epthpapatha. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but
Yeah,
I
you said
looked
right.
that up. Epthpa, Epthpapha. So apparently, I'm not sure if it's Hebrew or something, but it is a language from the Bible. I believe Jesus says it, and it means be opened, and that opens the vase or the basket, I should say. And this Garrett pops out. So what the hell was Pawpaw doing with this young man in this vase? I don't want to know. This is very creepy. It's a little disturbing. I'm not sure if there were I don't know. I don't know. This that ends Act Two, but Pawpaw wants to take over. He gets the Garretts all riled up because he's speaking out against Kinner John. He's talking about how he's been around for 2,000 years. He's saying he's this prophet and he has connections to the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. It's wild. It is wild. There is turbulence among the Garretts. They start questioning Kinner John. It's It's a cool scene, but
The
ah,
the Garrett's want the clothing that Kenna John is wearing because they're just like I thought, and because Papa is making this racket and he's causing all this confusion so you could go in and stuff. And they're mad at Kenna John because they don't got the robes and stuff. And
mm-hmm.
Kenna John is all about Jesus and the prophecy and all of this stuff. And then he starts cussing like it ain't no tomorrow and stuff. And it's just like, oh wow, this is the where the cult part comes in into everything.
this this part's pretty sad. That okay, so you get this orb from Kenner John. It starts following Catherine, and you go back to Super Duck in the warehouse and give it the node, and that is where even more problems start, and that's where we go into Act 3.
Yes.
So, um, as you remember, Million attacked Kay, and it's actually Brett LeBlanc who saves you because his private detective house is right next to your house, and you wake up in his office. And did you notice the toilet in his office right next to his desk?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, earlier in the game when he tells you about the shield agent stealing the box from your mother's house, it
Mm-hmm.
turns out that's the reason that he didn't intervene. Supposedly, is because that's where he was when he saw it.
He
So
was using the toilet.
there's a whole big exchange where he's talking like, "Oh, I would have stopped them. I would have put them in their place or whatever." And then turns out that's why he couldn't intervene.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
He's an unusual character. He's not quite as unusual as Pawpaw, but he's up there. And so he explains that he saved you from Million, and you actually get Catherine's smartphone again, and you can start using it as Kay. So you want to go back to, I believe it's Duck's house. There's a head drive client app, and you have this voice menu app. But I think I'm trying to remember you. Okay, you go back into the hidden office. You have to return, yes, Dimes, which is where Duck is. And you see this note left on his desk. And I think, was he attacked by those Garretts who were hanging out in front of his house? You have to fight them
Yeah, you had to
as
fight the
LeBlanc K.
yeah. They didn't attack them. They was just asking them a lot of questions, and then because it was too much, it was too many Garrett's who, and none of them had a leader. They ended up leaving, because he didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any answers, and because of that, it kind of wore him out, and he fell asleep.
Yeah. And so you read this note and you learn that there's this sunken head in the bayou somewhere. And ooh, oh, this part gets pretty gross. And late, you had mentioned that you want to come down to Louisiana and ride across Lake Pontchartrain, which plays a big part in this game.
Yeah, that is something that I've wanted to do for several years. So I was pretty excited to see the lake was featured, and then when you actually get into the sequence where you're in the boat, you actually have
Hmm.
to go under the bridge, and there's just a lot of conversations about it. Well, that was pretty cool. So it'll be fun to drive across it sometime and think about you know the sunken head underneath the the waters and the various things from the game.
Maybe you can go look for one.
Oh, I bet there's more than one in there.
Oh, probably. That's oh yeah. So you go to Lake Pontchartrain, you go into these fishing camps, and you're knocking on these doors, and you get to read this billboard, and it's really cool. There are all these hidden messages if you use your app, the Kenner John Apocryphon app, and you can knock on one of the doors and you'll meet some familiar face, at least one familiar face. Dallas is with these two other characters, and you learn that Catherine actually worked with them, and they are studying Super Duck, which is who Dallas and Catherine were working for. And it's actually because so Super Duck is the versioning of Duck's mind. And somehow it took over, it grew, it became this malevolent being, and it caused these nodes to overload or something because of that orb.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's a little fantastical. And then they have another boat driving scene. Um, and you're trying to connect to these different areas in the ghost bayous, and you have to unlock different things because you can't see the shoreline towards the north of the map. And they have a really fun achievement where you can find some Mardi Gras beads and you can give it to the pig man of the swamps. Did y'all do that?
No, I did it.
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, you can find like whenever the sonar goes off, whenever it beeps from your boat, that means you can dive into the
Hmm.
water and you can search for some Mardi Gras beads. And then there's another section towards the right or the east where you find this pig man of the bayou and you throw the Mardi Gras beads to him and he wears them and you get an achievement or
Oh.
something.
Oh, okay.
But oh my goodness. So the 4 sections that you have to hit where you dive into the water, they have some very disturbing yet kind of moving dialogue, like these hypothetical situations that Kay finds herself in. Like she's still searching for Blake, and it's like her subconsciousness is speaking to her a little bit. What did y'all think about this boat driving part?
Go ahead, Lake.
So I like I, I liked it in general, and the thing again, I keep drawing parallels to where I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. I just kept
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how the swamps and all of these little inlets and all of this kind of maze of waterways reminds me of back home. Really, I mean, there it's roads and
Wow.
it's the mountains and it's um, what would locally be called hollers instead of valleys or hollows. But it reminded me a lot of that because you have people who know those areas very well or are going to those areas and hiding and doing illegal stuff or whatever. Um, so I was of course reminded of all of that while I was playing through this. Um, I don't remember a lot about the text that you were describing in the diving sequences, so I kind of want to go back and replay that
Mm-hmm.
and just to kind of refresh myself on some of those sequences. But and I feel like there was at least one other optional thing that I found, but I can't remember what it was.
Um, you do find your monkey because
Oh
at some
yeah,
point
that's right.
while you're driving down Airline Highway, monkey flies off your back, and you actually can find it. And I highly recommend you do if you did like what Ed and I did and forgot to record Bruce's dad's recording. I highly recommend you get this monkey because it can help you with another ending
Yeah.
in the game. But you do find Kenner John's sunken head in the Ghost Bayous, and you learn that Pawpaw decapitated him, and he is now in charge of the Garretts. It's wild. And so then you reach the end, John's Pond. That's where you reach, and there, God, okay, this part was wild. There are these micro influencers and nano influencers recording everything that's going on. There are all these Garretts. Some of them have weapons. There are even some people, I guess they're part of the National Guard, like some snipers. They're watching the Garretts because I guess they assume, are you some kind of um, militia? Are you trying to hurt people? What's going on? And in the distance, you see this huge rocket ship that the Garretts built. Again, like if they could use their powers for good, imagine the things they can accomplish. But then there are some NPCs, if you talk to them and listen to them, they're saying, well, we must be the dumb ones. Look what these Garretts, these kids can accomplish. That was wild. And so there is a part, and I did this after I got the first ending I received. You can find Bruce in this container if you knock on it. You can either show him the recording from his dad and he'll leave the container, or you can give him your monkey, your pet monkey, and he'll leave the container. But he has to leave the container in order for you to get one of two of three possible endings. Yeah, this so then you have to tell us tonight, you have to get this other guy who's like, if you give this, I guess he's another Garrett. He looks like a monk kind of. You give him Kenner John's head, and he's saying that he's the one true leader of the pack. He's the pawpaw, he's the ditch man. And you record him saying this, you show it to some snipers. They fire a warning shot at him and they end up hitting the kid that Ed was talking about who was eating the nasty potato chips. They hit him in his knee or something. And you get his card, and you're able to, as everybody's distracted by this injured kid, you can actually go into the rocket ship. And okay, uh, Ed, late, there are all these little things that happen. And there was, I think it's right here where you get to, for the mezzanine, you get to revisit your home. And that was one of the most poignant parts of this game, where you get to visit different rooms and you see the outline of the Mississippi River through New Orleans, through Norco. And you even get to see the ghost, or this image of Laura St. Clair telling you what's going to happen to you and your brother and your mother. It was gorgeous, and it's like the house is flooding again, and you're just going through different memories. You even revisit Blue. What did y'all think about just the whole rocket ship situation?
It was revealing everything. Like the build up and the lead up to all of this stuff was so good. It was revealing everything. You know what Kay didn't understand, she's now coming to understand. She's getting to learn, and so it was a good way on kind of wrapping up the story of Norco, of Kay's journey. And even Captain just like learning about this stuff. Like I just thought it was the way that they were going to end this as not so over the top, but like cinematic storytelling. That's what this
Mm-hmm.
literally was. It was. I mean, yeah, everything else was in adventure mode video game, but then it turned into something else when it got to this part. I'm just like, oh, this is kind of deep. It's revealing. This is cinematic storytelling that they're doing. Yet it still have the basis of a video game. I definitely enjoyed it. I loved it.
What about you, Late?
Yeah, on the scene you were describing where you kind of get to revisit your home and it goes through room by room, I remember thinking that was probably the end of the game. Like you said, it was
Mm-hmm.
such kind of a beautiful wrap up, and just the way everything was being kind of described, and it just felt very much like the end. So I was kind of surprised when I exited that part of the that sequence, and there was more to do. But yeah, I thought that was like a lot of the other parts of the game. It's like there are um, these little parts of storytelling that are just really kind of beautiful language and just kind of very poetic. I feel like, and I think that was one of them. The other thing that happened in the rocket, which confused me a lot at first, is there are some battle sequences where as you're climbing up the rocket at each level, I think you have to fight some opponent. And the first one is John. And my first thought was, isn't John dead? But then you also fight an opponent labeled Shield. I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember what the third one is. But then you,
Super Duck,
oh
right?
yeah, that's right, Super Duck. But then afterwards, you talk to um, LeBlanc, who makes it sound like he didn't see any of that. Like that was apparently all in your head, because he talks about how you were just like swinging wildly. It seemed like, and it was it very much gave me the impression that to him you were just kind of losing it and were just attacking the air. And I'm I'm still not 100% sure what that sequence was actually meant to communicate. Do you have any thoughts on that, either of you?
Oh no, I don't.
Hey, I kind of wonder, the house situation. I, it kind of reminded me of moments just hitting you. Of you start, things will trigger memories for you. You might just be minding your own business, and you might remember something like a relative who's passed away who was very close to you. Maybe you're just washing dishes and something mundane, and you start thinking more philosophical, deeper thoughts. And she's also returning after 5 years. She wasn't there when her mother drew her last breath. Her brother is a misfit. She probably Kate. You don't really. And by the way, I don't know if we said this, but you don't really see Kay's true face. It
Mm-mm.
kind of
Right.
looks like, if you played Stray, that's the best way I can describe it. She has like those like a little eyes, little smiley face, like almost like a robot. And I think Blake kind of looks the same way too, while Catherine looks like a human being.
Yeah, I really feel like it's the orb showing Kay all that stuff because the orb was
Mm,
connected to Catherine so much. So if that's the case, I think the orb was reading all of Catherine's thoughts, or just like literally been wherever she went. There's something about it. It felt like all the information that Catherine was holding, once the orb got around her, or something. I don't know if she ever touched it. It felt like the orb uh just got all her memories and all her thoughts and stuff. And so when it gets into when Papa and the orb is in the rocket and stuff, I feel like the orb is showing Kay everything that her mom remembers, everything that was going on when her mom was living. And so the stuff that Kay missed out, the orb is informing her, is showing her and everything.
mm,
Because Kay knows nothing about Laura killing herself or anything. So
this is true.
that's why when they're having that discussion, she was just like, "This is the form that I'm taking because da 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 this and stuff."
And that's interesting because some of that was really the intention that Catherine had by doing the versioning and leaving the head drop
Mhm.
behind. So ultimately, what you're saying is the orb ended up doing a much better job of communicating these memories to Kay than that sketchy low end head drive that Catherine had recorded. That kind of is part of all this mess.
Yeah.
So this is where there are one of three endings you can experience. So you go into this very magnificent looking room, which I don't think rockets really look like that on the inside. It looks like a shrine, like like temples. There are a lot of Catholic motifs as well in this rocket. Like you see Marian statues, you see the crucifixes, you see angels, just different things like that. And so when you reach the top, the pinnacle of the rocket, you see your brother Blake strapped to the right. He's just tied up in this chair. Your mother's corpse is on like this throne, and the orb goes to right above her head. And Pawpaw's in the corner, and he's dressed up a little differently. Like he looks like he's
He looks
more ornamental.
insane.
That's a nice way to put it. He looks a little crazy. He has like bracelets and anklets and I don't know, like almost like this Greek god type thing.
And this is the crazy thing because Papa is the one who kidnapped Blake, who kidnapped her
Yeah.
brother.
Well, do you think he got the Garretts to do it, or do you think he did it himself?
He did it
Do we?
himself.
Did he?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
believe he did it himself because the Garretts knew nothing, probably didn't know nothing about Blake or anything and stuff.
yeah, I kind of assume that too. I don't know that the Garretts could be trusted to keep that secret.
That's a good point. They're amateurs.
Yeah,
they, they're
Right.
little kids.
And the thing about it is the way that Blake is talked about and his problems and stuff, he would have been a Garrett the time that Catherine was alive. He would have been in that mall because
Mhm.
while
Yes.
Catherine's
yeah,
doing her detective stuff, she never mentions. I don't know if she mentions Blake at all throughout her whole adventure, because we don't see Blake during her time when she's with Dallas at all. She talks about Blake. She tells Dallas that she got two kids, but Blake is nowhere around, and so it's kind of weird to like. You would think that with the way that the Garretts were and how they are recruited, you would think something as simple, because Blake is kind of a simple person, and you would think that Blake would be someone that gets recruited from there. And about this whole
Mm.
game, nothing until Kate comes back. And I feel like once after Catherine died, I feel like once he started getting into trouble, I think somehow Papa ended up kidnapping him. Where he held him at, that part I don't
Mm.
know. But when it got to the last part, I think he took I think somehow he was able to get into the rocket or sneak into the rocket and leave him there. Because why the Garretts don't know that Papa and Blake is in the rocket?
I think you can talk to some of them and ask about him, and I think they're like, "Oh
Mm,
yeah, he's with Pawpaw." I think. Am
okay.
I don't remember.
I,
Do
I
you know?
I was thinking there was one reference at some point that implied that Blake might be with Paul Fobby. I think that was near the end, if I remember.
Yes, and this was during Catherine's part when you're trying to find the last virtual apocryphon, but she and Dallas do have a very sweet moment at the top of the city hall, and you can actually see the
Yeah.
Superdome in the back. Um, it's really funny. They make a joke, which I've thought about before. They're like, "What's it called now?" Because it used to be the Louisiana Superdome. Then it was the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Now it's the Caesars Superdome. Like these different companies keep buying it, and I thought that was a really funny joke because I'm like, okay, now who owns it now? Which corporation bought the Superdome? Which is where the Saints, New Orleans Saints, play, and they have other events. Yeah, but yeah. So Pawpaw says, "Take your seat into the throne," and the first time I played through. And you can also pick up at different save points in the game if you want to try to get different endings or go back to different parts. I got the quote unquote bad ending. It's called Congrats with an unhappy emoticon. And you, Pawpaw, your mother's corpse, and Blake blast off. I'm assuming it's blasting off. I was really upset with myself because I was like, I don't think I did it. I don't think I did this correctly. I don't think I accomplished the mission. Oh, because Pawpaw again believes that your mother and thus you and your brother are direct descendants of Jesus Christ, and he wants to join all of you at this like Christian planet in the stars or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the ending I got, where it's assumed that well, Catherine's already dead, but the other three die as well.
Yeah, that's the same one that
Yeah.
I got.
Yeah. Everybody ends up dying.
Now, I did
You know.
go back when I found out what to do, because even though you missed the recording from Bruce, if you give him that monkey, there is a chance to get a good ending. Did y'all do that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I did it. Did
And
you do it,
that's
Ed?
I did not do it, but I seen it.
Okay.
Uh, so should we reveal it or not?
Um, I mean, if you've gotten this far, you've hopefully played the game.
Okay, so
Don't
it
listen. Stop listening.
so
By the
in
way,
this
LeBlanc is dead. LeBlanc is dead at this point.
yeah, so LeBlanc dies. Your brother is rescued. You somehow get your mom. She's in your hand, and you guys run to this area. Your Blake jumps over. You throw your mom into the water, and then it's so funny, the animation, the way that she just launches her into the water. It's so funny.
it's a,
It's
it's a
amazing.
nice light moment during the weirdness.
Right. And then you jump over, and then the rocket ship goes up with Papa. But in the end, because you end up also destroying the orb, the light sphere. Um you three end up jumping over, and the rocket ship goes up and explodes, like it kills them and stuff. Or it kills Papa. And so you and Blake are swimming, and then it's just like your mom is saying something and everything. Uh, and then I think you get rid of your mom and she drowns or something. And then Blake and you kind of like, or Blake comes to you and stuff, and then like the game kind of ends after that.
Now you can do that, or I was reading that like you can you can save just yourself, or
Yeah,
you can save just Blake or just your mom's corpse or something. So maybe there's more than three endings.
yeah. The ending that I saw was that you saved the mom and Blake, and you all three jumped over.
Yeah, and it's if you do that ending, Blake goes to Salt Lake City and starts anew, and it sounds like Catherine continues. I mean, Catherine Kay continues her wandering ways, and I'm assuming you put your mother's body back in the mausoleum. I would
Probably.
assume so,
It's
but
just it's just so funny that the way that she threw her. I'm like, this is top
into Lake
tier.
Pontchartrain.
Yeah.
But that's Norco, but I feel like there's so much more. Like we could probably talk for 5 hours about this game. We
Yeah.
actually went over time, so late. Thank you. I know you're an hour ahead. Thank you for taking time to talk with us about this. I know you have some more thoughts, and I'd love to hear them.
uh, there's so much. I mean, really, so much. So many of the notes that I took were from the first act, or maybe the first half of the second act,
Hmm.
and were so much of it was focused on the poverty of the area and the whole company town stuff, and there was just so much there that again it just really struck home, and it just reminded me so much of like I said, the areas that I'm where I grew up, and made me realize that I think a lot of that's more universal than I think I realized. Even though, like I said, it's a very different region, very different to some extent, kind of a different language, very different industry. Still, there the people who are living in those company towns are very much experiencing some very similar things. Um, One thing in particular that I just remembered I wanted to mention: the first time you go into the backyard and you see the refinery in the background and the towers, that combined with earlier, there's a in Kay's story, there's a decision, or you have to answer about how she feels about not being around the sounds of the refinery. And it really just kind of struck me that the people who live there, they can't escape it. It's a 24/7 presence in their life. The sounds, the smells, and even if they go to their backyard, it dominates the skyline and
Mhm.
dominates their view. And it's just that just really made me think how that would feel to be, to grow up somewhere like that where you can't escape it. It is just part of your everyday life, and it just kind of dominates everything that you experience. And I think there are a lot of people who probably deal with things like that, and it's not really maybe appreciated for those of us who are lucky enough to not live in those situations. So I think the game does a really good job of kind of giving a voice to people who live that experience. And I think for
Hmm.
that reason alone, it's well worth playing. Um, there are also lots of other reasons. I thought it was great.
And this is the funny thing. This is part one of a trilogy.
Yes,
Every
thank you, Ed, for bringing that up.
and so I agree with you also, late. I the writing is strong in this game. The story, as crazy as it gets and stuff, is really good. Like this can be a movie. And even though it takes place in 2017 and 2019 or 18, it really feels, I mean, it really feels like if someone was to go in and make a production of this, a lot of people will go and see it because you don't get storytelling like this. You don't get this it's not such a thriller, but it's such a good detective s- mystery that you really want to know what really is going on. Kay comes back home, and she didn't mean to walk into anything like this, but it just happens to unfold. So I really believe that this is a game that I am going to definitely, like you, like, recommend that people really play. And I kind of like, and I mentioned Switch. Hopefully, it comes. I want a physical of this. I want a physical copy of this game because I
Me
do,
too.
and I love the artwork, like the title art to this. But I kind of want to own this game. I think this may now this is kind of challenging in everybody. Um, I think it equals or it may be a little bit better than Coffee Talk because Coffee Talk is amazing and I can't wait for Coffee
Mhm.
Talk too. But I think this may be one of the best talk to walk games that I've ever played.
For Ed to say this is huge.
This is huge, and I and trust me, I enjoy a lot of the talk to walk games that we have played. But I think because this the narrative and plus I love mysteries and stuff. I think because everything was just so well done in this presentation, like this literally could be I may have to nominate this as one of my personal game of the years, even though it's not on a Nintendo console. This game is that good. And it's
Damn.
funny and it's funny at times.
It does. Like it sounds like a very heavy and bizarre game, but it has some very funny light moments. I mean, like he
Mhm.
said, with the team rocketing in that limousine. You
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god. Um I know we talked about Gothic literature, but what you both were saying, there was another website I found that goes into it a little bit more from Reedsy, REEDSY.com. This stuck out to me related to Norco. Gothic literature got its start in 18th century England as a means for authors to express the problems they saw in society. By the same token, Southern Gothic literature aims to expose the underbelly of the idyllic, cracks in the foundation of a decaying grand mansion, seething intentions behind pleasantries, unsavory thoughts of the supposedly pure. If you've ever watched the play version or the movie version, or even read A Streetcar Named Desire, that is an excellent example of all of these elements of Gothic literature. And if you've ever read the book or seen the movie of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, that takes place in Georgia, that is, I think, Savannah, Georgia. That is another great example.
I'm going to look for that.
Yes, you
But
have to. You
I'm
have
gonna
to.
I'm gonna look for it, buy it, and watch it. I think that's yeah, s- yeah.
It's wild. Midnight in the Garden. I have a copy of the book, and it has funny characters, but there's mystery and murder and stuff. But it's
Oh,
based on a true story, but it's really good. Um, for I think I would have wanted to bring this up about the whole pawpaw thing. So when I was looking through the resources on the Norco page, I put this book on my wish list. There's a book called Templars in Acadiana, and they use this to research and come up with Pawpaw's whole lineage of Christ scenario. Apparently, there was a belief that Christ's bloodline may have made its way to Louisiana via the Acadians. Now, if you're not familiar, a lot of people in this area are descendants of those kicked out of Nova Scotia, the Acadians, like in 17, I don't remember the years. It was called the Grand Derangement. The British kicked out the Acadians, and a lot of them came down here and settled where I live and also to the west of me, a lot of different areas. But apparently, this theory helped to inspire the game's bloodline narrative. That makes so much more sense now because I was like, where did they get this idea? Pawpaw got this idea. So I'm going to have to read Templars and Acadiana by Wilbur Stiles and do some research on that. But I have some other thoughts. But if anybody else wants to go first, please, by all means.
I'm good. I said what I needed to say. Play this game, everybody. Play this game.
Late, is there any thing you want to add before I go off on some tangent?
So I think I'm just going to kind of jump on what Ed was saying a minute ago about the storytelling, and just to say, narrative games are that's kind of my focus. I mean, I play a lot of other games, but that's what I really love, and I've played a lot of good ones. And I'm not even going to try to rank this one among all of the great ones that I've played. But I will say that the storytelling in this one is something special. I think it really is something that everyone should experience.
It's it's beautiful. You had mentioned the fence line communities, I believe, late.
Yes, there was the a book at the beginning, the Fence Line Diaspora, I believe, and there
Hmm.
was an excerpt from it that I thought was particularly interesting. I'm trying to find it in my notes, but basically, it talked about how effectively, as bad as things were, whoever was being quoted in this book, um, what actually caused them to want to leave wasn't the bad things that were happening, but it was when um, the media and kind of activists started coming in and really started drawing attention to it and started, referring to them as victims. And that's another thing that I don't think people understand. You've talked before, Celeste, about how you get questions about why people stay after hurricanes.
Hmm.
Why people don't just move. I think it's very similar. I think it's easy from the outside to look at people who live in these areas and wonder why they aren't just leaving to go somewhere better. But I think that it's such a complicated issue, and I think that a lot of times what happens with people who have lived in these areas, and I'm speaking, I guess, primarily my experience from the coal mining regions of Kentucky. But when you've lived here your entire life and your family's lived here their entire lives, whatever the negative things are that you're dealing with, those are normal to you. That's just your day to day world. And when you have someone from the outside coming in, even when it's well meaning, I think that it's easy to view them as outsiders and kind of attackers. And I think people end up defending the industries and the things that are actually maybe the root cause of their problems. They end up defending them because that's what they know, and they don't want someone from the outside trying to tell them what they need to do. And the thing that jumped out at me, um, or that I thought of that really kind of drives that home is in Kentucky, in spite of all the problems the coal industry has caused, there's an organization called the Friends of Coal that was created to, it's a nonprofit, but it basically was just almost a marketing campaign for for pro coal industry. And you can now purchase a special license plate from the state of Kentucky with Friends of Coal printed on it. And part of that, part of the fee that you pay for that goes to the Friends of Coal Association, whose basically mission is to just further the positive image of coal in the area. And just, the fact that people who are negatively affected by these things are so willing to support them in spite of any problems that they may cause, I think is kind of speaks to the complexity of these situations.
That's beautifully stated. And
Yeah.
as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about the oil and gas industry down here. I wrote it down. I have a love hate relationship with it because it's a necessary, quote unquote, evil. Because look at how much we depend on this industry. I mean, like it or not, if you drive a car, if you use styrofoam, if you use electronics, if you use so many things, our world is shaped by it. If you fly on a plane, you're using what that industry produces, and so many people around here rely on that industry. When it's bad, like I'm sure you've heard, like the oil, like, they go down, it has its waves, it ebbs and flows. When it's bad, it affects all the industries around here because if people
Mm-hmm.
are laid off, they're not spending money at the barbershops, they're not spending as much at the restaurants. But if when it's really good, there are people who are millionaires around here who have beautiful homes, beautiful, and can support their families. And I really hope Louisiana does diversify, and I think it's trying. But there are some people who are resistant to it. How even though it has hurt the environment, and there are people much smarter than I am who can speak on this. Um, there are people who are saying that in addition to climate change, oil and gas drilling and its presence in southern Louisiana has also caused our erosion problems. And again, I'm not an expert on it. I'd rather someone much more educated speak on that. But our coast is disappearing. And again, there are people. I live like 2 hours away from the coast. I'm pretty okay. But there are people who have made a living shrimping, crabbing, fishing, whatever. A lot of Native American communities, they refuse to leave the coast. The local governments are saying, "Hey, we're going to pay for some housing for you. Come up, come more inland." A lot of them are refusing. They're like, "This is my way of life. I've lived here forever." And I heard some nasty thing after every storm. It's like, why do people live where there are hurricanes? And my question to them is, well, why do people live where there are tornadoes and blizzards and earthquakes and crime and poverty and fires and pick your natural disaster? Why do people live there? And this game, I think it's the same book, Late. I'm not sure, but it's talking about like disaster porn enthusiast in her, like a book in her room. It might be the same one you're talking about. They talk about how after hurricanes, all these people come in and like they take pictures, and you kind of feel like a circus a little bit. Like you feel like you're this sideshow. And last year, my area was affected a lot by Hurricane Ida. And like a day after the storm, it's all sunny outside. You see helicopters flying over. The National Guard is out. They're surveying the area. You're on the news. People are coming in. And on one hand, you want that support because it brings notice, it brings help, it brings aid, it shows how severe the problems are. But on the other hand, you have people making those negative comments, and then you kind of feel like a caged animal, like, oh, look at these poor people. Look at their houses. Look, they're without electricity for 3 weeks. And I have mixed emotions about it. I'm not sure if that's making any sense. And yeah, like we've done it before, like after the storm when power was restored, we did go drive by the heavier hit areas just out of morbid curiosity, like how bad did some of these places get hit? Because that's human nature. But I don't know. It's kind of like, have you heard that term, like, I can say whatever I want about my brother because he's my brother, but the second someone else starts saying something about it, I'm going to beat you up.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
Like,
that.
I guess that's kind of the mentality people have. Like it's, there's a joke on one of the New Orleans Instagram accounts I follow that says, it's a dirt pile, but it's our dirt pile or something like that. I don't know, not to disparage New Orleans because it's a beautiful city with so much history. But I really appreciate you coming on LateToGaming and sharing those sentiments, because I guess at the end of the day, I say this so many times, let's just be kind to one another. And we're all on this spinning rock, this planet together. And today you, tomorrow me, you don't know what can happen. There's so much outside of our control, whether it be with large corporations, with illnesses, with natural disasters, with deaths. This game, it reminds me to be humble and just to be kind to my fellow man, because God, I could go on. But the orb, I was curious. I don't know what it means, but I was wondering if it represents a feu follet, which is a ball of flickering light in the bayou. That's a French term. It means like little fairy lights in the swamps. And the eagle or super duck in the swamps, when you release it and it spits out the orb, it kind of reminds me of the pictures of animals in oil spills, like after like what was it, Enron and all these different ones that have happened, and you see these animals covered in the waste. I kind of thought of that. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for, but it reminded me of those animals that are hurt and affected by those things. I don't know. I just this game, it's short. It can be even shorter if you don't do what we do and explore for things as much. But the writing, and I cannot wait to see the other two games. I don't even know what else I can say about Norco except please play it. Late, do you have anything else to say, or I don't know.
No, not really. I mean, you pretty well summed it up. I guess the one thing I'll add, I am really curious of what's in store for the developer. I don't know what their plan is really, but I think the writing alone justifies someone greenlighting more projects for this developer. I really hope that this is just the start of something much bigger for them.
God, I hope so. Ed, thank you for letting me host, and thank you for letting me talk about a game based in a place that I have passed through many, many, many times.
Anytime. Well, everybody, that's going to be it for Talk the Rock. Late, you want to go ahead and plug? Where can people find you?
Sure. So you can find me on social media, on Twitter, YouTube, occasionally on Twitch, all at LateToGaming. And I do have a blog that I update maybe weekly. It's latetogaming.blogspot.com, so you can check me out there as well. I'm around on various Discord servers, and I'm not that hard to find if you look for me.
Yes. Celeste, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Fairy Crypt, and I'm also a part of another Zelda podcast if you like the Legend of Zelda series.
Yes, and you guys can find me on Twitter at that retro code. You can also check more of Talk the Walk at Boss Rush. Sorry about that. At Boss Rush Media on our YouTube page and at Boss Rush Network, where we talk about games, food, and other things about gaming or entertainment, I should say. Our next game is going to be Detroit Become Human. That's going to be our January discussion, so you guys do have time to play it. It's on PlayStation 4. I believe you can play it backwards compatibility on PlayStation 5, and it is on PC also. This game is by Quantum Dream, so we cannot wait to have this discussion. With that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and have a great walk and talk when you play, or if you decide to play Norco. With that, everybody, we'll see you next time on Talk the Walk. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.